Do you think there's like one right solution to each caricature? Yeah, I think there's like one target I'm trying to hit, and how accurately I'm trying to hit that is where the drawing lands. He goes, hey, you're wrong. He kind of chuckled and said, there's like a million ways to draw each person. And so then he drew me that day, and he had like brown, greasy, oily eyelids that were deep set. And the next day I worked with him, he drew me like a tube with lips and teeth like this. And I thought like, oh my God, it's not that you're trying to win the award of the most accurate and correct caricature. It's that you're just showing that you're playing.
Thanks for tuning in to another ToonCast. AJ Jensen here, and I'm seriously super stoked for this episode because I'm sitting down and having a conversation with a legend and caricature champion himself, Joe Bluhm. So, Joe actually played a big role in pushing me toward loving the art form of caricature. His book, Rejects, was the first caricaturing book I saw, and it blew my mind on how awesome caricature actually is, which helped push me and pursue this profession. After winning the Golden Nosy in 2003, Joe didn't really settle into one lane. He kept expanding. He pushed what caricature could look like and how it could be approached to self-publishing caricature books like Rejects, then moving into the illustration world, like working on the fantastic flying books of Mr. Morris Lesmore, which went on to win an Academy Award for the Best Animated Short, and eventually finding his way into animation as well. Joe's creative journey is not only appreciated in the caricaturing world, but celebrated. His dedicated momentum is an inspiration to not only caricature artists, but all creatives alike for his hard work. So let's settle in and let's tune into a great conversation with the one and only Joe Bluhm.
All right, hey man.
Hey.
I appreciate you doing this. I always like kicking this off with everybody just talking about their little journey through caricature. So if you want to just roll out the red carpet and just start with that, that would be great.
Sure. And you want to start at the beginning?
Yeah.
Is that the best?
Yeah.
Probably the best place?
Start at the beginning.
Well, I'd always drawn my classmates and my teachers and my parents and my brothers when I was a kid, and I didn't know it's a thing people could do at all. So when I was going to art school, I went to the Cleveland Institute of Art and was majoring in illustration there. And one day a friend came to me at the computer lab, like during a break in a class, and said, are you going to go over to that thing for the portrait and caricature interviews? And I had no idea what he was talking about. And he said, there's a summer job where you can draw like portraits or caricatures in a theme park. And I don't know why I never thought about that being a job. Never thought about that as a possibility. And so I just was like, yeah, when is it? He said, it's ending right now. So I sprinted to the other building and I just had a sketchbook and I interviewed for a job to do caricatures. I had no idea what I was getting into. And so that summer I did my first summer job doing theme park caricatures at Six Flags Jaga Lake, which used to be the SeaWorld in Ohio. And I just absolutely loved it. Dropped out of school and I just knew I'm making money doing something I really enjoy. So why should I pay money and go to art school? I'm learning more from all these people. I started to make friends all over the country and I just continued to pursue that as hard as I possibly could. So I worked at SeaWorld in Orlando that following that fall and winter. So it was probably 2001 or so. And I was just absolutely hooked. I started to learn so much about the world of caricature that exists like everywhere, painters and illustrators through over time, finding out about, I didn't know who Al Hirschfeld was until I was 22 years old and Sebastian Kruger, and then ended up meeting him the first year I started getting into caricature. And I just wanted to explore all of it. So I started doing editorial illustration while I was doing theme park caricature and just leaning on caricature as much as I possibly can. I'm sure that most people know about the International Society of Caricature Artists. And so at the time it was the National Caricaturist Network. I joined that through a friend, went to the first conference and won like 12 awards, including the Artist of the Year, the Golden Nosy. That was my first. I just told myself I'm going to make a portfolio and I'm going to win everything. I was so obsessed with it, and I did. And then I felt imposter syndrome. So I kept going back every year and trying to prove myself that I was good. I knew what I was doing, but I secretly thought I wasn't that great at it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then eventually, I feel like I was just pushing through every possibility of what caricature could be, and I wanted to try to find out where those boundaries bled and spilled into other art forms like fine art, animation. Um, but along the way, right before I moved into animation and kind of stepped away from doing caricature for a living, I wanted to put all of the things that I learned about doing live theme park caricature into a book, because the things that you learn when you're doing it are that good drawings aren't always liked, and what people like isn't good. And you can learn the dial of how to make people happy or slightly offend them, and it's such a fascinating thing. So I just put together a bunch of drawings and stories into a book called Rejects that I published in 2007, and then went around to like Comic Cons and made sure a lot of people got to enjoy that. Then moved into animation. So that's the quick snapshot of it all.
So were you working at the theme park when you were doing the Rejects book, or did that happen after, when you compiled everything together?
Yeah, I mean, it started in around 2003. I was taking photos, so you probably remember the digital cameras like were crap, like
Yeah.
a half a megapixel, and we didn't have iPhones. So I was taking photos around 2003, 2004 is when I started, of drawings. And I really just wanted to do it because I would go into the lunchroom at SeaWorld and tell my friends about a drawing we did. We all did this back before, like, smartphones,
Mm-hmm.
and would say, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe this woman. She had this on her head. Her hair was kind of like this, and what I did." And we would tell stories abstractly. And so I thought, I want to take photos and tell my friends about the drawings. Like, I just want to take a picture of the drawing, just a drawing. I don't really want to compare, because I'm not using it as a barometer of like, look how accurate I am. But I hit a point where I knew that likeness was captured, so I didn't really have to prove that. I just wanted to have fun with the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the artists I worked with proved that, or were showing me that. Like Dan Hay is a guy who, one day he was working with me and he just looked at me and said, "Hey, I got a question for you. Do you think there's like one right solution to each caricature?" And I said, "I never thought about it like that, but yeah, I actually do. Actually, yeah, I think there's like one target I'm trying to hit, and how accurately I'm trying to hit that is where the drawing lands, but I have it in my head and there's one solution." He goes, "Hey, you're wrong." And he kind of chuckled and said, "There's like a million ways to draw each person." And so then he drew me that day, and he had like brown, greasy, oily eyelids that were deep set.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never seen that about myself, but I had not been able to unsee it since then. And he really focused on that, just that one thing, that one day.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day I worked with him, he drew me like a tube with lips and teeth like this. And it was totally different. It looked like some 90-degree pipe
Mm-hmm.
with an Adam's apple. And I thought, like, oh my God, you are choosing different things to express. It's not that you're trying to win the award of the most accurate and correct caricature. It's that you're just showing that you're playing.
Yeah.
And so once I felt that through a lot of my peers, and a lot of people that trained me when I first started, I wanted to show them these pictures. So I started taking photos around 2003, 2004, 2005, and I didn't know what I was going to do with them. I was just showing friends in the lunchroom. And then it became, at SeaWorld in lunchroom, I'd come in with a couple friends and coworkers, and they'd say, "Hey, you want to show us any of your rejections?" And it would just turn into like, and it's a term I'm sure that I didn't come up with, but um, it was like, "Yeah, let me show you the rejects that we have." And it was kind of always funny because it was a double entendre of, is the drawing a reject, or are the people that don't like the art the reject?
Mm-hmm.
And and uh, and I was just taking pictures and I was cataloging them. I started putting them in my portfolio for the caricature conference as part of. I saw someone else do it, and I thought, that's kind of fascinating. They're putting a live caricature in there. What if I showed some crazy live characters in my portfolio? And then after a while, I had a friend, forget his last name, it kills me. His name is Chris, and he was in Tampa, and he said, "Man, and when I see your drawings, I just want like a whole book of them." And so I was telling my best friend Nate Graham that, and he said, "I could watch you draw babies all day." And as you know, as we who draw caricatures live, babies are
Yeah.
really hard for
Yeah.
most people
Yeah.
and even hard for us. But you have to find, it's almost like I would tell people, it's like drawing an alien. It's the rules don't really apply to an adult face or a male or a female or whatever. You're drawing a new species and it's a new set of rules than the average. And so drawing babies became something that I really loved because we could push and bend it and figure things out. And he said, I would buy a book called Babies if it was just your drawing of babies. And I thought, that's really funny. Nate always has good ideas. So I started taking pictures of my drawings of babies, but I would only get like 2 a day. So I'd take pictures of all the drawings. And then I realized I kind of want to show all these. I just want to share them. And what was funny to me is when you go to the lunchroom, you know, at SeaWorld or any theme park or Universal Studios, and you start telling the stories, their reaction and what the circumstances are, that's half the fun. And so for me, I started to formulate this idea of showing the drawings, and it's not about them being good caricatures. It's not about them being grotesque. I just kept seeing this commonality that this is really fun. I've hopefully at the time, to me, the drawings don't look that great anymore, but at the time, I think they were pushed. The choices were different.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't the average theme park face like that we were trained to draw in 3 minutes. Would do profiles and upside down and backwards and stuff, and that was part of it. But the other part was the context by which it happened, and we all know that it's like sharing war stories at any job. It's like this mom said this, and so then you see the drawing, and once you know what the mom asks you not to do, the drawing takes on a whole new light, and then there's a story and a world behind it. And so I had that concept of I want to show how you can push drawings in a theme park, and it's sort of like the entryway, the foot into the door, or the buried lead is, oh, they're extreme, but it's really to me about you can have fun with the art form, and isn't it wild how people react? That was the thing for me, is how people they don't get it, or they do get it, or they don't like what you do, or you dance a line. It's like a performance, and the performance doesn't have to be a circus clown. It can be a psychological. Um, it's like a piece of yarn that you're batting around like a cat psychologically. Yeah. So I was taking pictures for a while before I knew that I wanted to compile them.
So really, you were trying to imitate the world that you were in and try to translate that in pages. Like, hey, this is the kind of fun that we're having in the theme park booth, and I'm trying to transcribe those stories and all of that creativity and fun and kind of put it in each page, so you kind of learn the lifestyle of a theme park artist. Is that kind of what you're saying?
A little bit. It wasn't so much to package the experience or to show a lifestyle of the artist. It was, for me, very simply, isn't it funny how the good ones they hate and the boring ones they love? It's kind of started there.
Okay.
And then I thought, oh, isn't it funny that every time you draw someone with an underbite, they're angry? And then it's like a comedy bit. It's like a comedian figuring out material with their friends. I would be in the lunchroom and I'd be like, oh, got another underbite today. And they would just start laughing and go, it was a reject.
Yeah.
And so I would show but then I realized the funny part of that is not the drawing. It's that don't draw a woman with an underbite. Don't do that. Even if she has it, especially if she has it. And so that's really the joke. And so part of it was it's anthropology. It's knowing how people respond and the guards that people have up. That's what really was interesting to me. And sometimes you draw someone and it's the most screwed up thing you can imagine, and they love it. And so then I'm like, as you know this, British people can take it. And so just in general, the average British person will not get mad at you if you draw a screwed up, crazy, extreme caricature. And so I that was a tagline in the book. Like, Brits are always fun to draw. They don't get upset.
Why do you think that is? Have you ever thought about that?
I don't know. It's like it's the vanity of culture or society. It's maybe there's so many rabbit holes we could go down there. Like Monty Python. They had Monty Python. They make fun of their own teeth.
Yeah.
So as soon as you're going like, I'm making fun of my own teeth. I'm pale as a porpoise. And like if you walk into the room saying that and someone draws it, they're just going to have a good laugh at it.
Mhm.
And so it's not a hard and fast rule. But then if you see a dolled up fake tan mom with a daughter who's 9 and she looks dolled up like she's trying to make her look like that, it's like, oh man, if you hand a marker to me, that might as be called a waste of time machine.
Yeah.
I'm wasting my time. There's no way I can make you happy. And so these archetypes, you're really studying human behavior. And that's what I found was drawing live and drawing in a theme park was art school to the max. If for every reason that like you go home and you draw, you talk to someone and they show you an illustrator. Here's Glenn Barr. Who is Glenn Barr? Oh my God, those paintings, what? And then you go home and you want to paint in a different way. So it was art school. But then the other thing, it was a study of psychology. It was a study of human behavior, especially. And what's great about places like SeaWorld, destination parks, is you get to experience everywhere in the globe. You know that Brazilians are up for a laugh. And these are not blanket stereotypes that are like judgmental. It's you start to see that there's certain reactions that you get in certain cultures, and these cultures have different dynamics to them. So of course, it's not just nature, it's nurture. And it's a little bit of both. And it's crazy how, it's like you can turn the page, and a caricature artist like yourself and like others who have experienced what we have would know, oh yeah, if a British person walks up, it's like a British dude who's 30 walks up to you and says, hey mate, can I be next? Like, I'm going to have fun. This person's going to have fun. You just 99 times out of 100. But the average person doesn't know that. So you put in your book, I love drawing British people. They're always blah, 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 blah. And then you show a screwed up caricature. And to me, that's what's fun about some of those little inserts of the stories and rejects is it's not necessarily the drawing. It's the whole thing wrapped up in an envelope of experiencing what we've experienced about the world, not about the job.
Yeah.
It's just weird,
It is. I always think too, like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I hate doing that, but I haven't had that many rejects. I think I've only had 4 or 5 in my whole
And you
career.
draw extreme at times.
Yeah, most of the time I try to. But I think
when I say extreme, I work with people who draw the exact same face.
Yeah.
And I would say 9 out of 10 caricature artists who do it for a living in a public space, they draw the same face over and over again with like different hair color.
Yeah.
But I'm saying you draw unique drawings.
I'm also trying to educate people when I'm drawing them. I say, I always ask, how funny do you want this? And that kind of sets up for what their expectation is going to be. Also, I've noticed too that when you say, hey, I'm going to go to town on your face, like I'm going to put something down and it's going to be wild. And their expectation is, what are they going to draw? And when I show it to them, they're like, oh, that's not as bad as I thought it was. I hear that all the time. So I think they prep themselves up for like masking all these insecurities in their head. They're like, oh my gosh, do I have a big nose? Oh my gosh, am I wall-eyed? All of this. And I think I do have banter with them when I am drawing live. Like I'll mess with them. I'll bust some chops. So I guess I prep them for that. But I always try to think why.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but this is YouTube and you have to say these types of things. So if you're enjoying this podcast, go ahead and give it a thumbs up or leave a comment down at the bottom because that helps tremendously. It helps to serve the channel better. Also, if you're sketching along, upload your sketch to Instagram and use the hashtag #SketchWithToonHeadz. Everyone loves seeing fun artwork. So upload it. All right, back to the episode.
And I think, I don't know. I'm just charming. We'll go with
that's also one of the misconceptions that happens too, is that I had through some friends of friends and people in the caricature community think that I would just draw really extreme to try to piss people off when I first started, like when I first was going to conferences and when I first came out with rejects, and they would think like, oh, I don't like to do what you do, to try to be extreme all the time and offend people. It wasn't like that at all. It was trying to enjoy the art form, and same thing, I would try to educate people on the art form through just a pleasant experience. And the one thing that I would always kind of get shit for, sorry, I don't know if I can say
you're fine.
But one of the things I can kind of get crap for is I would get a hard time was my manager, who's a great friend, Dino Casterline in Florida. He would always remind me. He's like, "Hey, man, I know you and what you do. You could easily make every single person happy, and you could make more money than every single artist in this park. Why don't you just do that?" And so there was a time when I needed money, and I turned it on, and I would try to make it. The drawings weren't bad; they were just safer,
Mhm.
and I would be turn on the charm really extra and just try to be a bit of a salesman. And one time because I needed to save some money, and one time I got home at night and I opened up my sketchbook and I wanted to work on like a personal project. I just had an idea and I could not draw. And that this has never happened to me in my life. We have varying degrees of if you turn it off. It's like going to the gym. You kind of like lose that for a bit. But this is the only time in my life I could not draw. I literally sat there with a pencil and a piece of paper, the simplest tools at a dinner table. And I'm like, all right, I just want to draw a, like a human form. And I was trying. I got that frustrated. I could only draw the lines that I was drawing all day,
Mhm.
which is like, here's the jaw and here's the nose. It was the same muscle memory of the only thing I was doing is the only thing I could do. And I just was like, no, I can't. I can't. I chose to be an artist because I want to explore ideas and because I want to show beautiful visuals to people so that they could uh, be provoked and think and share love and share empathy of how the human experience is. That's why I became an artist. I wanted to paint and share beauty. And if I can only draw this carnival face, I'm lost it. I don't care if I make a little bit extra money. So I decided I was never going to do that again. Every single one had to be for me. Because if it's as I think almost anything in life, if you do something for you and you do it for the reasons that you know, if they're decent or virtuous reasons, then it benefits the world more than if you play it safe
Yeah.
or have ulterior motives.
I'm
And
glad you
so
brought
I
that
really,
up
mhm.
because I struggled with that maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, I run my own company. I gotta please, the customers.
Yeah.
And I was like, "You know what? I think I can get a solid, like, exaggerated sketch that's fun." I might need to fix, speeding up that time a little bit, but I was like, "I can't draw cute drawings." Like, even if I go cute, people are like, "That's still exaggerated." So I wanted to
Hmm.
come up with something that I could just stamp, but it also looked good and it wasn't too harsh, as we'll
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
And then I just got in a bad routine, man. It just got too comfortable, and I was more trying to focus on, like, how to interact with the guests, how to, give them experience, and then my creativity just it was, like, sucked out of me, and when
Yeah.
I was like then somebody sat down that had a great face, they were all for it. They're like, "Hey, we want one of those crazy ones that they do in Hawaii." I'm like, "Hell yeah, finally," and I go to put my marker on the page, and I'm just blank. And I think there's a balance that you gotta kinda figure out between that, um, because I do feel like you have to kinda play it safe with certain people and then do your own thing. I do feel like there is a balancing act with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say it's like comedy. Like, if you go into uh, like, just like a college comedy club, you can get away with saying like dark material or, talking about death. But then you go and do it at like a hospital where people are like 3 months left to live and you do those jokes, you could get away with it, but that's very risky. So you gotta have
It's
to
true.
know where you're going. But I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think a lot of people talk about that, especially in caricature, on how that habit can be like you're just a machine after
Yeah.
that and you're not thinking after.
Yeah. It's also became a joke with me and my friends is someone would call it a stamp because like someone sits down and you're like, all right, dip it in the ink and
Yeah.
boom, blue eyes.
Yeah.
And that's what so many artists did. And you kind of, as a person who cares a little bit about it, we all hated that. So it makes you sort of slingshot or a pendulum the other way.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. You don't necessarily lose the ability to be affable and adapt and chameleon and read the room. But it can get really hard, like especially those days in Orlando at the destination parks during a summer. you're drawing $1,000, or nowadays it's like $2,000-$3,000 a day at these carnivals and festivals. So it's like someone sits down, you have 3 minutes, and you're there to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just kind of crank it out, crank it out, crank it out. There's so many terms that my friends and I would come up with those. I can't even think of them right now. We would say caricature because you're cranking them out.
That's fun.
There's just so many different words we had for that. But yeah, then you start to find you can't draw. And I work with this one guy named Edwin in Florida who is really cool, but he's not an artist. Had a great sketch that he would do in the theme park. It looked very much the same every time, made people very happy, because that's something that we know that not a lot of people know is they see something they want and they line up behind that artist because they expect to get the same thing that they just did. And that is huge. And it's like, that's like 101 for drawing live, but I don't think the rest of the world understands what that's like. The experience from our end is you see the artist who draws the same thing over and over again. And yes, that's reliable. The parent who's having their teenage kid get that drawing, it is going to look like the last one, but that's because that's a boring artist, or they might be playing it safe. And I'm not judging the artist as a human. I'm saying like the art that they're creating is repeated. It is a stamp. And so they're going to feel happy. And the worst, as far as quality of execution and craft goes, the worst artist I've ever worked with is still making the most money in Orlando. It's insane. And he draws the same terrible drawing every single time. But then someone sits behind you when you do something that's really fun and charming, and then they walk up and they've got a nose this big and buck teeth and no chin, and they're like, I want to look like that one. And it was a 20-year-old supermodel that walked away. Yeah. And they're like, well, they don't realize that you're drawing what you see and you're not drawing the stamp. And so then you draw theirs, and then it pisses them off. Yeah. But they chose you, but you want them to choose you because you got to make money. So it's just, you're always wrestling the psychology of it. Correct. When you're in that scenario.
How long were you in that funk with just trying to play it safe? Do you think it was like a couple months, maybe a couple weeks?
I think it was about three months.
And you said that you sat down, you just went for a sketch or something like that, just had an idea, tried to do it, blank, brain fart, couldn't do it.
I was living with my friend and I bought a classic car because I wanted a classic car, and it ended up being a lemon. It was like one of those life lessons I had. So I had no car, I had debt, and I was in my like early 20s going, what am I doing? I need to get out of debt. How could I have debt right now? And so I thought so I worked 3 jobs. I worked for a bunch of different companies and did gigs and stuff, doing all caricatures for different companies that service the theme parks and the entertainment down there. And I just said, I'm going to make money fast. I need to get out of the hole. I knew that the responsibility as a human sort of took precedence over my creative whims. So I said, I'm going to make money. And in about 3 months, I went from being like 10 grand in the hole to having 20 grand saved. And I just worked my ass off. I had no bills, no obligations. I just had rent to my friend and food. And so the only way I could do that is I'm going to make as much money as I possibly can. And in the theme park, which is another thing that people you typically know, is you work on a commission base, at least back then, and probably now a lot of times. So if you sell a $20 drawing, you get at the most $8 or $10. And so you have to try to get more customers and sell more. And so I just like, screw it. I'm going to make as much money as I can. And at the time, it was a lot to sell like $1,000 a day in the summer. And so I would do that day and night, 3 jobs, work 7 days a week. And then like I said, about 3 months in, I finally had a day off and I'm finally getting out of this rut. And I sit down and I go, oh man, I want to start drawing. I saw someone's art, was really inspired, and I just could not draw. It was like my pencil was tracing the theme park sketch that I was doing in a sketchbook. It was weird. It's like my brain was broken. I couldn't do anything else. Yeah.
What would you say that the benefits were besides the financial side of doing that, though? Do you feel like you could communicate with people a little bit better? I always think that there's a lot of positives on things that you have to learn, even though it wasn't great for you.
I think there's 2 ways to put that. One is there are positive benefits, but because I had been doing it for a living for a couple of years, I think I had already learned all that stuff.
Yeah.
So like I was very, very gregarious and affable with people, and I knew how to talk to people and make them feel good, like public service. I mean, a hospitality service kind
Yeah.
of vibe. It was genuine. Anyone that gets to know me knows I'm just kind of like bouncing off the walls, happy usually. Or if I'm not, I'm always kind to people. And so that wasn't a thing that like really flooded in or I learned from that experience. But that's not to take away that I think what you're getting at is right, that you do learn that stuff. I think I learned just as much about, you know, sales and connecting with people and making customers happy when I was drawing crazy stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you just felt like you needed to do that in that situation, but there was a consequence from that for sure. How long did it take to get back into the creative slot for yourself after that?
Oh man, at least a couple weeks. At
Yeah.
least a couple weeks, maybe a month.
Could
It
you
was
imagine
crazy.
doing that for like 2 years though? But that then you gotta like work back because you said you had only a couple months, right, of doing it, 3 months?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a breakup. You get as much time as you went dated, it takes as much time, like half the time to get over them.
Yeah. It's also weird because I wanted that for everyone else. It's like it's so stupid, but it's like seeing in the Matrix and then turning around, you want to tell everyone.
Mhm.
And so all my coworkers, I would tease them and egg them on to draw extreme, and I would play games. I would tell them, "All right, the next person you have to use only the color red." And if they get a color sketch, or uh, all right, today we're going to draw the back of someone's head in the next hour. And I would just really egg on all the artists and just give them weird challenges. And when they would draw normal or like kind of boring, I would tease them in a fun, um, like sibling sort of way. And about half of them could take it, half of them didn't like that. But I was really like, I want what's best for you. Don't do this. Do something great. Try have fun. You're gonna make the same amount of money. You're gonna sell the same stuff. It's gonna be fine. And I was pushing everyone to try to just please do something unique. Please make the world a better place, even if it's one drawing that doesn't suck. And I think a couple coworkers really got upset. There was one woman that I worked with in Tampa who I really, really loved. She's really sweet, and she had a very average caricature sketch in the theme park, but she was very, very nice, and she did it for a living for many, many years. Might still be doing it for a living. And I would tease her, going, "Ah, you did another amateur sketch." And so then I started, instead of amateur, I started saying Amy. And so I'd come
Oh.
back and I'd see a drawing. I'm like, "Oh, Amy's back." I found out years later she hated it. She viscerally hated that I did that, and that she didn't talk to me for a while. I was like, "Oh no, I was just trying to have a good ribbing with you. I didn't know."
Yeah.
So maybe I wasn't so aware of how to have good customer service.
That happens to me
It's
all the
funny that you
time, buddy.
mentioned, I want a crazy one like the ones in Hawaii. Um, uh, Aaron Philby with Caricature Party, he worked with me both in Ohio and especially at SeaWorld for years. And when we started working together, you could tell he had crazy ideas
Mhm.
and he would draw so silly, but his drawings weren't good. He was just like, have you ever worked? You've probably done this, trained some people and worked with young people. And when they first start out, you can see that they're going to be good because it looks like they're cautiously tracing over a good drawing or a unique idea.
Yeah.
That's something I experienced quite a bit, where you'd see someone and you go, "Oh, if they can figure out their line quality, they have good ideas." And I could see
Okay, I
Aaron's
get what you're
drawings
saying.
were like, it was like a squirrel scratching on paper,
Mhm.
but the ideas were insane.
Mhm.
And I would always think, then by the time I left doing theme park caricatures, I always thought there's certain people that I hope the world sees one day. Like Dan Hay was one of them,
Mhm.
and Aaron Philby was one of them. And so when I started seeing on Instagram and TikTok Caricature Party, I was like, yes.
Well, Dan Hay's actually getting pretty like popular in the caricature world too. because a lot of
Yeah.
people are getting away from just like shoulder up caricatures. They're trying to push
Mhm.
like body composition caricatures, and Dan Hay is a big inspiration for a lot of people that I've been talking to. Like Volta, she came and stayed out here for a bit, and she was like, Dan Hay is amazing. I'm like 100%. I mean, that's the reason why I do those like full body caricatures every time we go to ISCA.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm looking at Blubber Lubber like a Bible before going out
Yeah.
there.
He didn't know why I wanted to publish that book.
Uh,
He was like, I don't know why you want to put my work out there.
I'm glad you did it.
And it was because of the bodies. He would draw people
Yeah.
walking around a theme park, and they were on these little note cards, and he was like throwing them away.
And you're just
I
like,
was like,
I want that.
yes.
I want to
And
keep it.
that's one of the coolest things ever too, because when you see those drawings, you feel like you've already seen that person.
Mhm.
Certain people standing a certain way, you're like, I've seen that guy.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
has
it's
some
almost like their
magic.
character reflects how their pose and even their features are. I guess that's another thing I like about caricature. I don't want to use the word stereotype because that's like a negative thing, but
Mhm.
there's ways that you recognize people just off the basis of like other characters. So
Mhm.
like, for example, like you'll get somebody that sits down, they got a big beer gut. They're wearing some kind of football jersey and they're loud and just whatever. And then you're like, that's my Uncle Jimmy. It
Mhm.
just kind of
Mhm.
translates. And then you add that personality into the caricature as well. And that
Yeah.
kind of helps
Yeah.
boost it a lot.
There was someone I went to art school with said there's only so many people machines,
Yeah,
and everyone comes out of one of the people machines. And so you've seen someone, oh, that looks like my cousin, 10 years later, you're like, yeah, they came from the same people machine.
that's funny.
It's so funny.
So how hard, because you're saying that you were using one of those old digital cameras, I can't even imagine printing that in a book. How hard was it
Yeah.
to translate all of that over to like pages?
My friend Chris that I was mentioning earlier, he helped me out. They were low res, so I would bring them into Photoshop and scale them up.
Hmm.
And so they were, it's kind of hit. There's like a tipping point where you can see that it's crappy. It's like
Hmm.
an artifact um, photo. But because there wasn't a lot of like auto exposure or tools like the iPhone has to get everything balanced, you would see shadows, and it would like the whites would be super gray and green. So I had to do a color correction on all of them. And thankfully, I learned Photoshop in art school. So
Hmm.
I've been using Photoshop for 25 years. But I would do a color correction and a contrast adjustment, and then I would have to go into each one and paint out if the white of the paper was gray and touch it up
Oof.
without changing. Like there was one rule I had is like, I'm not going to embellish anything. I'm not going to paint anything over. I'm just literally taking like shadows out. That's all. Or if there was a crease in the paper and my thumb was in the picture or
Yeah.
something, just painting that to be the white of the paper. So I didn't want to touch anything. So it was like surgery for about 6 months on
Wow.
images.
And is
Yeah.
this Chris Neuenschwander?
No. But I did work with him in SeaWorld. This is I'll remember his name later. He um we used to call him what was it called? Something Kite Man, because he would fly those paraglider fan powered kites that you could
Okay.
fly in the air,
Yeah.
like a paraglider or something like that. And he was this weird savant. He did that. He was a juggler. He did like ceramics. He did all kinds of stuff, and he was drawing in Tampa, um, at the SeaWorld in Tampa. And I would go down there and work every now and then and train with artists. And he was just the coolest guy. He would just sit and talk to me. He's probably about 10 years older than me. And he'd just lean over and this big smile on his face and go, "Oh man, I don't know how you do all that. You use that marker like a samurai sword, man. Like the way you cut on the page, I'm learning so much, and you teach me some stuff." And he was just the most infectious guy. So when he saw me taking pictures, "Yeah, man, you got to clean that up." And I'm like, "What? Can you show me how?" "Yeah, I know how to do curves and levels in Photoshop. I could show you that." And that's some things I didn't know. So he helped me out.
That's nice.
Um,
Like a hype
yeah.
man.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a little more life lived. This was a job that he took in his like 40s for the first time because he was interested.
Hmm.
He's one of those just just drifters that does whatever he feels like doing, build cars in his garage, or then he becomes a calligrapher and then he starts working at a theme park because he finds it interesting. He just followed the wind of the art form that he liked, and he was just so enthusiastic.
I wonder what
So
he's
yeah,
doing now. Is he an
I don't
astronaut?
know. He maybe we reach out to each other like once every year when we think of like, oh my gosh, I wonder what he's doing.
That's cool. So how long
Some
did the
good.
book take to fully be done when you started working on Rejects?
It might have been a year. So I was taking photos from like 2003 to 2007,
Mhm.
and I probably started working on it in mm, like 2005 or six. Probably started working on it in 2005,
Okay.
like knowing that I'm saving these images into a folder and I'm going to slowly start typing out the stories. That was probably about 2005. So it was like a year at least that I was working on putting it together,
Yeah.
and it was InDesign. Um, no, it was Quark. I was using Quark at the time, and in Photoshop, and yeah, I thankfully had some people help me, like Steve Silver and Alberto Ruiz, who have done self-publishing. They were. I was thinking like, should I send this to a publisher? What do I do when I'm
Mhm.
done? And Steve Silver primarily, he hooked me up with who was printing his books, and he told me how he got them to Comic Cons and things like that. So I just went with that model. I thought I'm just going to do what the guy who's smart and is slightly older than me is telling me what to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
Was there a
Yeah.
book that you published before that? Before Rejects?
Nope.
No. So that was your first
Nope.
one. How good did it feel when you got that delivered back to you and you opened that and you
That was,
paper?
it's never felt the same.
Oh
Never
man.
felt the same. And I had, because I was moving around at the time, I had it delivered to my parents' house in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
So it's 3,000 books shipped to Laceyville, Pennsylvania in a giant truck on a pallet. And it was in their garage. And God bless them for being patient with me. It took up half their garage, and they were just standing there looking at it like, yep, okay. I'm like, don't worry, I'm going to mail like one box at a time. But it was cool. Like I do a lot of illustrated books, like graphic novels and children's books, mostly picture books. And so when I get, the publisher sends me a dozen copies and I crack it open, it's the first time you see it in print. It's exciting, but it's never the same as that first time.
I bet.
Yeah.
It's like
And
Christmas.
I had published a couple things before that, but it was not published. It was I would go to Kinko's and I would make 25.
Okay.
But there was this one that I did that was the precursor to Rejects. I called it The Series, and because I didn't have a name for it, and I would just draw the people I worked with. It was a series of drawings. So that's why I just did that. And because I would go to work and my friends would go like, "How's the series going?" Meaning the series of drawings. I don't know where it came from, but it was like this big. And I went to Kinko's and I had the ring binder and the really heavy cardstock on the front. And it was just all my coworkers I was working with. And this is because of Dan Hay. He said, you can draw people different every time. So every time it was my warm up exercise. I would show up at the stand when the theme park is opening. We roll all the tarps up and check the cash register. And then the two other coworkers at the stand that I'm working at would walk in, and I either right then or before lunch, I would choose to draw all of us at the stand somehow intertwined physically in some weird composition mush, making a joke or a statement. And there was 25 copies I made of that. And I only know of like two that exist right now.
So you
But
you,
it
you
was
haven't seen it in a bit.
no, the only reason I almost forgot about it. My mom has one and Keelan Parham has one. I know that because he'll send me a picture every now and then. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I forgot I did that. But that was the first one where I was thinking, I want to put some idea together. It's not just a series of caricatures. It's not a how-to. And that was the other impetus behind it, is every caricature book is a how-to. And I did have some people casually approach me and say, you should do a caricature book, probably like right after I started. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And they're like, yeah, you could show people how you do your extreme caricatures. I'm like, nah, that's silly, because I don't think you can teach that. And every other caricature book is a how to. And I don't think I can beat Len Redmond's book. Just
Mhm.
like, why would I do it if it's near perfect?
Mhm.
So I always had that germ of an idea of doing a book because, social media didn't even exist. There
Mhm.
was there was MySpace at the time. And so, you didn't have Instagram where you could just show your stuff. And so books were everything. And I had that idea of like a book, a book, a book. So I probably did like two versions of like the series, my little thing that I made myself and gave to my friends. It's like the idea of a caricature zine
Yeah.
that you just do.
So the whole marketing strategy about the book, you said you went to Comic Cons and stuff like that. How was that journey? That had to be a lot of fun. And
It was. I love that.
yeah.
I went to in around 2007 and 2008. I lived in New York City, and I was kind of lucky because I lost my job and I was freelancing. I had a job in animation, and the studio couldn't afford to pay its employees, so we were like, we're going to stop coming in. And then I'm like, I just moved to New York, and I have an apartment, and I don't have a job. What do I do?
Mhm.
And so I thought I'm going to really push this thing. So I started traveling like 7, 8, 9, 10 shows a year, and I would just stay with artist friends that I know, reach out to other caricaturists or comic book people, or if I knew a manager like in San Diego or in Houston, and there was a comic convention that was pretty big. I just did some research and got an artist alley table. Again, stuff I learned from the Steve Silvers of the world.
Mhm.
And it was crazy how well it was received, because at first there was some places where the organizers would say, yeah, you're not a comic book artist. And then other places they would see what I'm doing and go, oh, we've been looking for new stuff for Artist Alley.
Mhm.
And so I would just kind of show up with, I had nothing but rejects. That's all I had. And I had some samples of my work that I would show for fun, like behind me at this stand in Artist Alley. And I thought I got to do something. So I would draw people inside the cover of a copy of rejects. I did that for all like the pre-orders I had. And I started doing caricatures at shows inside the cover. And then I thought, well, I'm going to do like a really jacked up theme park style caricature with a nice plastic sleeve. And I'm going to spend like 20 minutes or a half hour on it. And I would charge people $20. And so many people would say, like, why are you spending a half hour doing a drawing for $20? I'm like, that's because it's here. It's here right now. There's no other place you can get it. So that's how I want to do it. I don't want to say, yes, I'm going to take your name, and by the end of the weekend, I
Mhm.
have 100 slots and they're all full, which is what so many people do. And I get it, because if these comic book artists have high demand for commissions, but I was kind of playing their world, their game. Yeah, I'm going to do artwork at the show. It's only at the show, and you can buy my book and I can do a commission for you. But I was doing $20 caricatures. So I had these huge lines, and it was super fun. It got to the point where uh, by the time I was going back for a second year, a lot of the shows, there was a little word of mouth, mostly with the artists that were at the show. They would leave their booth and have me draw them.
Mhm.
And so I started really pushing it. I started doing some like variations or theme stuff. The one that stands out the most to me is I actually have it right here. Let me show you an example. At the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, I love that. It was in this old library, or it was in this old building, and then it went to the library. I love the people that run that. It was TCAF. I think it still happens. And I went there a few years with a friend's recommendation, and I love them so much. I was in a room with James Jean, and he was just blowing up at the time.
Mhm.
And I had a line going out of the room,
Mhm.
and I thought, like, this is so screwed up. But it's because all the other artists were like, this dumb kid is doing these characters, is so awesome.
Mhm.
And so all the artists were supporting me. So I went back and I did these Victorian Edwardian style paintings of people. I think I only did like 15 in the weekend,
Mhm.
but I charged $20 and I did this for everyone.
All right, I gotta see this.
This was my warm up to give myself an example and to practice. I did it when I was staying. I think it was Marco Bucci, the artist. He has a lot of instruction courses and stuff now. He does stuff for animation, and him and Court Jones I was hanging out with, and I came up with this. But I got these wood panels, and I would do these.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I did these for $20.
That's a steal.
Yeah, but that was part of what I loved about it. Is some artists would walk up and go, "Oh man, are you all booked?" And I'm like, "I'm booked for today," or I would just say, like, come back when I'm done with this painting. I'm not going to write down names and wait and see who walks up. And I would paint right in front of people the whole day, but I would give myself like 20 minutes to do this or 30 minutes. I did 15 or 20 of them, and I thought that was fun to me because it's it's silly, it's insane to do something that I clearly could have been selling for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, but just it's $20.
Yeah,
Come on, see who gets one. It was fun.
that is fun.
So I liked all Comic Con stuff quite a bit.
That's good.
It's that world.
It's a smart marketing idea too. I mean, I wonder where Steven got that. I mean, it's probably Steve. He probably just dreamt it one day, and then it was like,
Yeah.
"Yep, this is what I'm doing."
Well, and people like me, I was in my early 20s, and I meet him at a caricature conference at like the convention. I see what he's doing. It's like, dude, you're that guy who designed the Nickelodeon characters. And he's really chill and he has a really unique style. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to this Comic Con. You should come check it out. and I'm like, wait, you're going to a Comic Con? Do you do comics? No, man, I just sell my stuff. And I'm like, oh. So I went to the Comic Con and I see these kind of artists like Bobby Chu before he did the huge Imaginism thing. He was just starting with that. And Alberto Ruiz, who would just draw these pinups and calendars and really weird geometric female forms. And Steve Silver, who's selling, Kim Possible and commissions. And to me, I walked in and this Comic Con was a diverse array of artists, multidisciplinary sketching that kind of blended a little with comic book artists. But to me, a Comic Con wasn't comics. It was all kinds of art and all kinds of illustrators and all kinds of character designers. And I'm like, that's what I am. I fit in there. And so it wasn't radical to me. It just felt like, this is cool. I'm just going to blend in. I'm just going to blend in with these people. And I met so many people.
I bet.
Like Paul Wee, who works in The Simpsons. He would do these beautiful paintings and caricatures of, movie monsters. And he's just amazing artist. And I sat across from him and his wife and became their friends. I'm like, what are you doing here? Do you do comics? No. I'm like, oh, okay. You just paint.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's one reason why I like the model that we do for our business, because we do festivals. I've never worked at a theme park before. And to go back to like being like only 5 rejects, I think it is the environment, because I do think if you go work in a theme park, people are trying to cut corners, or even like fairs and stuff. They're trying to figure out how to, they're like, oh, I spent way too much money. Maybe we just get a little offended by this caricature a little bit. Maybe that could be a thing. But the reason why I like our little art pop-up things is because you're not only meeting customers, but the people around you, like you'll end up seeing for years and then just saying hey to them. So that sounds like a lot of fun, just going to the Comic-Con. And like, would you see like an artist at one show and then go to the next and then they're at that one? Yeah, that has to be so much fun.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. There was like, there was sort of a crew back then where I would go to, if I went to 7 of those Comic Cons, like Chicago, or I would go to San Antonio. There was just so many random ones, St. Louis or Toronto. There was a couple of them. There's like Fan Expo and there's TCAF. Certain ones in certain circuits, you see the same like 5 to 7 artists in Artist Alley. So you'd get there, unload your stuff, set up at the table, and you have like the afternoon to set up before the opening night. And I'd walk down the table and be like, hey, there's, I have all their books right here. I could probably find, like Dave Coleman. I would see every single show. He's doing his animal character design for animation and illustrations. And I'm like, what's your latest book, Dave? And Steve Silver was always there. Alberto Ruiz was always there. Bobby Chu went to a lot of them, or his people did. And that was right when they were starting to grow. So I became friends with all of them. K and T and the core, like 3 or 4 people that were there. You just always see them. Yeah. So it became like a little bit of a gypsy thing. I really liked that.
How long were you doing that? Maybe about a year or 2?
Yeah, maybe a year and a half.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it would be sporadic.
How much were those booths? Because now they're like super expensive. You're saying this is back in 2007?
Yeah. And so it was, I mean, some of them were like $250,
Yeah.
but
Probably
you
not
have
now.
to, no. And some of them were like 250, some of them were 1,000,
Yeah.
but, uh, but also like it was a challenge because you go, all right, I'm going to bring 5 boxes of books. And so I've got like 100 books. I sell them at $20. They cost me, or $25. They cost me $7 a piece to make. So you're already doing the math of what you can make. Then you take the booth and then you take your supplies and everything. And then there's travel and hotel and meals. So most shows, for someone like me who's just a nobody at those and was young, I never made money. You just always, it's an expense. It's like a marketing
Yeah.
expense. Mm. I
And
have
it's
some people,
smart
I would
too.
sit right across from them and like, yeah, I made 10 grand this week. And I'm just like, I ate
Yeah.
food. Yeah.
But it's smart too, because you were actually doing the caricatures there. You were doing it cheap.
Yeah.
How often would it happen? Because at gigs, we have this happen all the time. We got to cut the line, and then the
Mm.
last person you cut, because you're like, I can't do any more today.
Yeah.
Where they just like,
I hate
well,
that. I hate doing that.
well, can I get a book? And like, would they just go and buy a book instead, and instead of waiting?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's
And
smart too.
that's, yeah, but you probably can guess the feeling. Someone like waiting for hours and then they're closing the show and people are announcing over the thing, like, everyone leave the hall. And they're kicking people out, security coming through. And then you just see the one guy sitting there and he's like, all right, can you sign it at least? And I feel bad because I saw the dude sitting there all afternoon waiting, and I hate that feeling. I hate it, but you have to do it. Yeah.
Did you ever bring other artists with you, like other caricature artists?
No, but I met a lot of people. Like I met this artist Chris Tamlin that we know. I met him at one of those shows. Who was I just thinking of? There was someone else that I met along the way that I was just going to bring up, but I didn't really. The first time I ever did it was with ISCA. It was NCN at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the board and I was like, we were trying new things. We were trying to market. We were trying to reach new audiences. And so I had gone to just a couple Comic Cons as a fan. And I was like, as an artist, going to San Diego Comic Con was insane. We should get a booth there. And so we did it. And it was like, yeah, like $700. And so we got an Artist's Alley business table. It was like a different kind of thing that they had back then. And we happened to be right on the corner because we were friends with Steve Silver and he put in a good word and we were in this awesome traffic area. We made these giant banners with Jan Optebeek's art on it and stuff. And at that one, that was like, that's where I first had rejects ever. And it was at like the NCN table. And so we had a lot of artists. We had shifts. We announced that these different artists were drawing at different times. That was super fun.
That sounds fun.
That was for the caricature organization. Yeah.
One thing I've been noticing while we've been having this conversation is you're really good at articulation. You're really good at like, I have this problem because I have to process stuff, but you're really good at like visualizing what you're seeing in your brain and then just kind of transmuting that. How is that just you? Is that just something that you've always been good at, or is that something that you had to practice?
I don't know. I don't know if I've always been good at it. I do know I'm good at it now. And I say that because it's like I have to be a visual communicator for everything that I do.
Uh-huh.
And once I started, especially when I started working in animation, so much of what you do, you have to figure out how to communicate an idea visually, whether it's storyboarding or character design. With children's book illustration, you have to get an idea and an emotion across. So it's like filmmaking. You show a moon and a truck and a character turning in the dim of night, and you want to evoke something. You have to know all the tools and pieces to put together to evoke a feeling without words. But then inversely, if you want that feeling to come across and you have a team of people, so like right now I'm an art director on a film, I have to explain all the nuts and bolts of the big machine that they have to make. And you're making one, vice grip, and you're making a rafter, and you're making a screwdriver. And I have to tell them, they have to understand what's coming together. And they also have to know where their part is. And that means I have to understand it. So one thing I've started to realize, and I've been told what you just said a lot recently, is when I talk or when I explain things or when I share, I definitely have learned that I do it in a way where I think people I'm talking to can picture what I'm picturing,
Yeah.
or feel like you are in that moment. So like getting my point across, and it's hard because this might sound silly, but I'm pretty darn good at drawing and painting and designing and storyboarding, and so I have to work with a lot of people who have less experience.
Uh-huh.
And you have to try to, instead of me drawing everything like in a storyboard or a character design, I have to give everything I have here to them.
Mm-hmm.
And with their more limited experience, they have to be able to give me back what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to be able to communicate very clearly.
Yeah.
I usually, when I watch myself on videos or when I hear back what I do, I feel like I'm tap, 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 tap. But
Yeah.
I think I'm getting better as I get older at that.
No, you're quite good at that. And I guess I struggle with that too, because when I'm doing the YouTube stuff, some of my artists help me through it. And when you're getting everything set up and you're trying to make sure the camera angle is good, it's just easier just to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're way worn out. You're like tired
Yeah.
at the end of the day. But I found when you just take a second and you try to explain what's coming out for them to actually comprehend what you're asking. You don't have to work so hard, but also you get better at doing it yourself because you're actually now translating that like out more, and it kind of focuses in.
I think there's a couple things in what you just said. One being, it's like some people say the best directors on films are the ones that know everyone's job and they know how kind of to do everyone's job so that you can be the best for everyone. And sometimes that takes being scrappy and doing it yourself. I know, like I work well with publishers when I do children's books now as an illustrator, or hopefully soon as more of a writer illustrator. But it's because I've put together so many books myself. So when they're saying, oh, we have to put together the end papers and, make sure that because we have X amount of pages that the gutter is not too crowded. I know all the terms because I've had to deal with it, but also I sort of take care of that stuff without them saying anything, that just right out of the gate, so that they can be better at servicing the bigger idea without having to explain the 101 to me. And so I do see it as like, if you doing your YouTube channel, if you've done everything yourself, it's like you kind of want to let go so you don't have to, so you have more room in your brain. But then there is a certain period where you have to, early on or beginning something, do it all. And then you get pretty good at it all, so that when you do hand it over to someone else, you at least know what you have to keep your eye on. I kind of like that. Yeah, I forget what the second thing is that I was going to say. Oh, I have 4 siblings and 2 kids. So you have to be able to concisely explain things your whole life.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with perfectionism?
Yes, always. Always have.
How do you battle this is just a personal question. How do you battle that when you're trying to teach somebody the role that you're sacrificing to give up, and then you see it not matching your idea as much?
I don't know. I'm not that great at that. My last couple long-term jobs for studios, the biggest bit of feedback I get was like, dude, I know you like to do everything and you do it as good as anyone, but you can't do everything. And that was the biggest flaw I had, is that I would step in and speak up and take over tasks and do them all. Hey. Yeah. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hey, buddy.
I'll say hi for a minute. Come sit with me. This can be the Arthur segment. See? Remember you saw him on YouTube earlier. Do you remember?
How you doing, Arthur?
He was watching your show.
You doing good, Arthur?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think this is the first time he's seen someone on YouTube who now is just talking to him. He's very into YouTube right now. You say bye?
Bye.
Say
There's
bye
no
to the whole
Arthur.
world. Bye, YouTube.
Bye, YouTube.
All right, I'll see you in a bit.
I'll see you in a bit.
Oh, bye, sweetheart.
That dude's adorable.
He's my favorite human being ever. Him and Betty.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, what were you talking about? Perfectionism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very bad at it. I'm very bad at handing over things to other people.
I'm trying to
I
figure out how to let go of that.
yeah.
I've been on a search of ego lately because I think it ties in a little bit. But I realize there's things that nobody's gonna see, but I'm gonna see it. And if
Mm-hmm.
I see it, it's not completed.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to let go of those a little bit. And I got editors that help me out too. And I try to one thing I'm trying to do personally is I'm gonna let 5 things go. And I figure out what those 5 things are. And that's been helping just a little bit, but I want to let
Do
go
you
of
keep
one.
count as you see them, or do you have a category in your head of 5 things that you know before going in?
No, I count them out when I'm seeing them. I'm like, okay,
When you
this
see
is
them,
something that I want
you're
to
like, all right,
change.
we've
This
hit
is
the
something I
limit.
want to change. Yeah, I'm like, I got to change this, and this. And then I'm like, okay, what's 5 things out of that list that's going to be
Mhm.
okay, still going to be okay to let go?
So there's a couple thoughts I have on this. One, I think part of it, which I'm not sure if you relate to, I'm guessing you do, is it's not all just ego or being perfect. It's that I mean, I feel an enjoyment in doing all the parts. I
Correct.
like I like
Yeah.
the steps of the process so much that I kind of just want to do them.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's like um, anyone that knows me or has lived with me, I'm notorious for don't do my laundry. Even if it piles up, I want to do it because I know how I like it so that the clothes don't shrink, so that I put them and fold them a certain way and they're in a certain drawer. And it's like, I just like doing it the way I like doing it. And part of that is um, maybe it's maybe it's something I undiagnosed.
Maybe like a
Maybe
routine kind of thing.
could be, it could also be like, I like the idea when I started doing self-publishing, I like laying out the book. A lot of people, when you read these self-publishing books that I read back then, like 20 years ago, they were all hire an editor and then call this person to do a cover layout and then hire this. And I'm like, no, I want to do all that.
Hmm.
I want to, because I want to learn the process. Um, the other thing that I think is fascinating is my friend Brian Hames called out is oh, I lost it. I'll remember it in a minute. There was something that
What's
he
going?
told me. Right. Yeah, it just literally flew out of my head right there. He talks about this quite a bit about learning processes and not letting go and doing everything yourself. It'll come back to me in a minute. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
get
know.
that. Like you miss the role almost per se, and
Mhm.
in the familiarity of being back in that role makes the other role less stressful with directing and letting go. I
Mhm.
guess I can relate to that a little bit. Like for example, with my ToonHeadz business, like responding to emails and making phone calls,
Mm.
like I'm trying to step away from that a little bit more and be more of
Yeah.
the problem solver. But I do
Yeah.
find myself like seeing like 14 emails, and then I'm just like, ooh, I can
You would
get these
hate
done.
my inbox.
Huh?
You would hate my inbox. I have
Probably.
thousands unread. I remembered what my friend and I talk about. You know how people say finished is better than perfect,
Yeah.
or it's better to just get it done than to make it just right. I was talking to my friend Brian about this, and we were sort of musing on. Can you believe that some of the things that we're most proud of were done on a whim in like an hour?
Hmm.
I will look back even on like Instagram and I'll see a drawing that I did that I absolutely adore. And it's because I had a small phase where I did inking with a quill, like a crow quill pen and a fountain pen. And I just started learning inking because I was friends with a comic book artist and I just wanted to get better at it. So I spent like a few weeks just inking in my spare time.
Hmm.
And there's a few drawings I did. Each of them took maybe an hour, maybe. And it was just something I pooped out.
Hmm.
So proud of them. And I have so many people who will write me and say, oh my God, this one drawing. I have people who got tattoos. I have one drawing I did where 3 different people, unbeknownst to them, without running it by me or asking, got it tattooed on their body. And it was a drawing in a sketchbook that I did while I was sitting at a restaurant with friends after work one day. And so that makes me go, why be so precious with anything? If the stuff that resonates with others, you can just go, oh, that's fun. I'm having fun. And then forget about it. And
Yeah.
then that sits in their brains rent free
Yeah.
for years. There's this artist that I know that I really respect who has a tattoo that I did this big on his torso, a drawing I did that was this big in a sketchbook that I did on a whim.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always tell myself, why not just remember that? We don't have to do everything. You don't have to labor. You don't have to go, that painting's not done. It's not right. Sometimes it is better to just put a ton of crap out there.
Yeah. I had to figure out with the YouTube thing, because consistency is more important with uploading. And if I do have to just put some stuff on there that I'm not necessarily proud of, but I like the AI video that I released. I was just like, I got to put something out. This is what's trending now. Let's put it out.
Yeah.
And it's got the most views. And that thing was done in less time than all the other videos that I've ever done. And it kind of pisses me off a little bit, because I'm like, I spent like so long on this one video that I really love, and it's got like 400 views, but then the other one is like just whatever. So there is something like, why is the treasure of just putting something out that just you did on a whim? I don't know. Maybe when I'm drawing or trying to do like a video edit, it's like the thirst of knowledge that there's something else that you can learn out of that. So you keep on exploring it by focusing in on it. I don't know. Maybe that could be something.
Yeah. One thing that sticks out to me on this topic is just sort of maybe having a revelation in the moment is
I'm trying.
It might just be that's the goal.
Yeah.
It might just be as simple as doing something that you know you're proud of, whether it's the theme, the message, the thought, the sincerity, the kindness, the whatever it is that sits behind what you're doing. Because I look back when you're talking about this, what jumps out to me is all the small projects I did with animation studios that probably very few people know about. And I'm so proud of them. And sometimes they're the smallest teams, and it's the silliest little thing that sits out there, but it's the most beautiful thing ever. And the only reason I'm so happy, it's not because there was awards. It's not because it has views. It's just as simple as I know it's beautiful. And I know I can go to sleep at night knowing I had this message that I was a part of, that I loved. So maybe as long as like we're always putting behind everything we do something that has value to us, an optimistic or positive value, then it's like you can just do anything, crank it out, and you know you can sleep at night. Maybe that's, I don't know.
Yeah, because I think about that too.
Now.
Like when I talked to Tom, after I talked to Tom doing the podcast, I was looking through his Claptrap book that he released, and I'm just like, how the hell is he just like busting these things out? And I'm not trying to shit on Tom at all, but I do think he's so proud of all the other things that he's done that he's not. But this is just my impression. It might not be true, but he can just whip it out on a whim, because he's like, I got all of this. That's fine. This just needs to get done. And then I go back to what my dad always told me, like work smart, not hard. And I think you kind of have to have that when you're like being a creative in the industry. You got to find a method that you can kind of not stamp, but something that you can be proud of at the same time, but also it can be done quickly. Does that make sense?
Yeah. He was actually someone who told me something like that, Tom Richmond. I was working in New York City, and I was working in an animation studio, and I was starting to see how much I don't know about what I wanted to do. And it was the first time I was second guessing my choice to drop out of art school, because I was going to a 5-year program in Cleveland. At the time, it was a very good school. I don't know how it's ranked or anything now, but it was a pretty good art school, Cleveland Institute of Art. And it was a 5-year program. So you did 2 years of foundation. That's one of the things I found appealing. You have lots of time to explore and figure out what you want to do and get the fundamentals before you go into your major. And I dropped out after 3 years because I found caricature. And I started realizing like, oh, geez, I think I want to go back to art school. I'm realizing what I missed out on and what I didn't know. And maybe I need to get a degree in animation. Maybe I need to do that if I'm going to go down this path. And so I was really wrestling with it. And Tom had been really gracious with his time with me and many other people over the years through the Caricature organization. So I just called him up one day. It was probably 2006 or so,
Mm-hmm.
maybe probably 2006. And I talked to him for about a half hour. He was really sweet, but he just said, "What are you doing?" And what do you mean? And he said, why are you going to go to school? Don't go to school. You're going to pay money to make art and learn how to make art. What are you doing right now? And I said, I have a job. You're making money making art. I said, yeah. And he's like, don't pay someone else to make art when they're paying you to make art.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you're going to do fine. I can tell. And then he said, but I do have one piece of advice for you. You seem like you're all over the place. I would pick one thing that you do and do it really well. I wouldn't keep trying to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was telling him, I straight up told him, because we were kind of honest with each other. I'm like, I think you're wrong about that. I want to do everything I want to do, and I want to experiment. I want to do different styles, and I want to explore everything, and I want to have that freedom my whole life. And he's like, well, okay, we're different. I think you should do one thing in one style and do it really well, because that's how you're going to have some real opportunities. And I remember going, oh, he's so wrong about that. But now I kind of definitely see what he's saying. And it's kind of what you were saying, like put together a form factor that you know is repeatable, that you're good at, and then you keep going, keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that is micro or macro, it's like, what is it doing short animated films and commercials that I did for a decade? That could be I draw with this style
Mm-hmm.
over and over again for Mad Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes 6 months to a year to make each project instead of 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But it's no different. And I kind of got his message now that I'm in my 40s.
Just now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Tom, man. He's a good lad. And I appreciate Steven for doing the podcast too, and you, by the way. And I hate to be sentimental here, but when I was stuck in the house and I was not leaving, and then I got your Rejects book off Amazon because I was like, I want to know what this caricature stuff was. So I got Lynn Redmond's book, your book, and Tom's book.
Mm-hmm.
And then just being fascinated with that, not just the artwork, but the lifestyle and the stories that you guys were kind of communicating through that. And I would dream of doing live caricatures, and then you just kind of go through your little journey, pushing through what you want, and you're like, that seems like a good idea. And some seemed like a good idea, and you failed at, but you learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
And now I'm sitting down talking to you guys, and that's one reason why I loved Caricature. It not only taught me like the creative side, but it also taught me how to communicate with people and then network. I mean, with what ISCA offers, you can go and meet your favorite artists, and then they can become your best friends. I don't think you could, that's pretty rare in other industries, I would imagine.
Yeah. And what's amazing too is, what you're kind of getting at, is everyone has a different sort of daily or a vocational path that they're doing. Everyone has a unique thing or unique things that they're doing. And whether it's directly caricature or even like what you do, this is a whole world that you're really good at, and I'm learning about. But then there's people like Sebastian Kruger that you go, oh, he's a German painter. And then you go to his workshop and you see what his life is like to do that. I love learning all the different worlds that they're all in.
I do too. I like the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like when you find, like you're saying, when people appreciate that. There was a long time, and I still sometimes get that, where people would say, I should go back to caricature, as if I like abandoned it.
Mm-mm.
But it was just one of those things where I was trying other things and doing everything else, and I'll never wash it off. It'll always be there, and I always enjoy it. But I would even hear some people saying that they feel like that I turned my back on caricature, or I'm above it. And I think that that's maybe a knee-jerk reaction, like 15 years ago from people, or 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Just certain people who think and I used to think caricature is the pinnacle art form. I think it's one of the hardest things to do, and I think it's one of the most satisfying to wrap your head around, because you learn the most about communication, about portraiture, about line quality, about likeness, and there's just so many things. I think it's one of the coolest, hardest art forms to master. But I do think that it takes you into different arenas.
Yeah.
Like you start going, oh, like I instantly was drawn to character design and animation, and I didn't know why. I was just like, I like drawing this person, but I don't want to just draw this person who happens to walk up to me at this job at a theme park because they're on vacation. I want to take this knowledge and this observation, and I want to apply it so the rest of the world can see things that I'm seeing in my head. And that's a huge part of character design. You've probably experienced this. I know a lot of character artists talk about it. It's like the Terminator view of the world. When you really get into it and you see people walking around at a party that you're drawing characters at, you look at someone and you go, ooh, those eyes and that face. And then you look over here and that person is pale and they're like a pie face, and that person, ooh, stretched out. And you just start seeing people as caricatures. There's some weird thing that you sort of absorb, like a weird superhero. And then you go, what am I going to do with this weird skill? And I was just bursting out to try to somehow throw it back at the world. And the only thing I could think of is storytelling, character design. And it's so awesome, like you were saying, where someone like Steve Silver is like, yeah, you should do character design. And I was like, how you can do that? He's like, that's what I do. We were talking at a conference once, like my third ISCA conference. And he's like, yeah, you should do that. And so I'm like, but I don't know how you do that. And he's like, I'm looking at your work. He was tapping on my sketchbook. I'm looking at your work. You're a character designer. You should do that. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know what to do. And it's so nice to have people like that can then, write you an email or give you a phone call for an hour and say, well, here's how you get started.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy cool.
Would you say that when you went from caricature to character design, I hate to say, I'm not dishing character design, but I would imagine that it is easier to not capture a likeness or the person that you're drawing. You're just like having a fun drawing instead.
Mm-hmm.
Was that easier?
Kind of. I had a weird way into it. I started doing character design with caricatures. So it was very much a niche thing where it was first Fox for some promotions that they were doing of a new character they were trying to create a show with. They were showing interstitials during huge events like American Idol. And it was this taxi driver, and in the back of his taxi, you would look in the rearview mirror and you would see in the reflection a caricature of a celebrity. Mm-hmm. And it would be a quick throwaway line, a gag, and then they would cut back to commercials. And so I was hired to draw Samuel Jackson and Brad Pitt and Donald Trump and things like that back in 2003 or 4, maybe 2004. And so I was just drawing caricatures. And then when I moved to New York and got a job at that studio, it was now they got discovered by Virgin Media, who was marketing one of their early TiVos or on-demand services. They were like one of the first TiVo streaming services, Virgin Media at home.
Okay.
It was a thing that they were doing. And so they saw that we were doing that, and they're like, that's a good idea. Let's have the glue not be the taxi driver. Let's have it be Richard Branson, who is hiding and trying to sell people this. So they would take a celebrity like Mel B from the Spice Girls or Kelly Osbourne. And we made these commercials where there was one wacky character and one celebrity who was coming in to buy something, like a consultant for a plastic surgeon, or I'm going to buy a lodge in the Alps or something. And the person who's selling them this was like, oh, you don't need that. You need this. It's Catch-Up TV from Virgin Media. And then at the end, they rip off the mask and it's Richard Branson. So then that was another, like a year of doing work where I was designing characters, and one of them was a celebrity, or two of them were celebrities. And so I was building that into the other characters so they had to jive. And then stylistically, you start to go, oh, well, these characters are all boring unless you put some caricature in them. So it helped me understand that I had to use caricature in character design, even if it wasn't a likeness.
Okay.
but then to go back to original thought, I found that this sounds so weird, but I found that once I learned how to capture a likeness, I'm like, cool, I got that. That's a skill on the shelf. And I hit a point where I didn't have to really worry about that. But you lose it fast. That's one of those things. It's like going to the gym too.
Yeah.
I could draw and paint my ass off, but then if I haven't done caricatures in a while, it's kind of hard for me to get a likeness so fast.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a whole different set of skills to do character design.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, I didn't want to seem ignorant when I was saying that, but I like when I sit down and just
really good
write in my
question.
sketchbook and I draw like a minotaur. I'm like, this is so much more relaxing than like trying to figure out what makes this person who and what's the distance between the features and how do I push the sketch and still make it look like the person. I'm just drawing a minotaur and it's got nipple rings. That's fun.
Well, what I've found, there's a threshold, in my opinion, of something that is like a fun minotaur, and then something that is really memorable or really hits people. Good character design is a whole nother level of that. I mean, if you think of all the animated movies that you love, how many of the characters do you actually really like? Like really like? There's so many characters that I know in animated films, even the films that I love, that I look at them and I don't really enjoy them, or they're forgettable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working with a sculptor right now who's worked with Pixar for like almost 30 years. His name is Greg Dykstra, and he's doing the maquettes and helping design characters in this film. And seeing the process and understanding where things come from a sketch to the sculpt, what references, what actors we're looking at for these characters, it becomes there's such a fine line between something that's finished and ticks the boxes versus what really gets you. Like I liken it to like a Beatles song, or a song you hear and it's so good, but it feels so familiar. Like the first time you hear it, you feel like this always existed. I must have heard this before, but you hadn't. Or you go, this is so familiar. It sounds like a song I've heard. It must be similar to another song. And then you can never find that other song. And it's just so good that it feels like it's always had to be. That level of character design is really hard. So like, if you go, I'm going to draw a bird. That's where I started. I would draw in sketchbooks, draw animals and people and observe stuff. And you just kind of draw stuff, and they're great drawings and they're really cool. And that could be a character design. But then the ones that you know that people call you back on years later and say that one's really good. I start seeing the commonality after about 18 years of doing this, where I can go, oh, they don't know that those projects, we researched actors. We did 15 versions of it. We played around with features until we were dialed into the millimeter. And those are the only ones that people say were great. And the other ones that were easy or quick, no one ever comments on. So it is that difference of like the idea of a Sebastian Kruger painting and a sketch versus the finished big. Picture his painting that big versus as big as he paints them. That it washes over you and it sticks with you when you see it in person.
That makes sense.
So it's like it's weird. It's like someone who plays the guitar really, really good, or someone who is Stevie Ray Vaughan. And that's the thing that we're always chasing down. It's really hard to get. We've been working on the main character on the movie we're working on right now for 2.5 years, and it's still not quite right. And I can see why now.
Would you say it's like finding the design of that character is like that character existed before designing it?
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
It's like a voice of your grandfather.
Yeah.
You have an impression of it, and you can describe it, but when you hear people trying to do it, and like, that's not quite right.
That makes sense.
Oh, he cracked during that one. And so in a way, it is like you're recounting something that always existed in your head, or always existed in the ether, and you're trying to pull it out of the air and push it together from molecules that are, invisible. And eventually you start to feel some form and you go, oh, it's there. It's almost ready. And then you got to try sculpting it, but you go, oh, it's all drifting away. It's so hard to latch onto. And that's something I'm just learning in real time in the last couple of years, because some characters we do a scribble and it's really cute. And we have this artist, Peter DeSev, working with us, doing some of the designs. He's amazing. But then some of his designs we get, and you look at it and I'll go, oh, no, that's wrong. It's just wrong. And the director and I will look at it and go, you had the same feeling. That's not right. We should play with it. Well, here's another actor, I'm thinking. And then we talk about what that actor has. Sometimes it's a quality of how they express, or sometimes it's the way they move, or sometimes it's things that they don't do that other people do. So in a way, you're taking a caricature of a soul and a concept and a history, and you're trying to put it into what? Into a theory sandwich and have everyone eat it, and then that has to be a shape, and you start to go like, this is weird. And so I don't know, sometimes you go, why are we wasting all this time designing a character when you could just go boop, big nose, that's cute.
Well, no,
I
mean, I've never even thought about it like that. I mean, you do have to have some kind of soul attached to that character for it to resonate with people. And when that character makes certain decisions, that's what makes it funny. Like, I like giving I guess my best friend, he's a goofball. But if I were to tell you stuff about him, you'd be like, that guy's insane. But if you know him, those situations make it funny. So that, I guess in a way, you're trying to capture that soul and then get everybody to fundamentally agree that that's that character. So when they're in a situation, that's what makes it funny, or that's what makes it recognizable, or that's what makes sense for that character.
And then you can go, how many degrees can you go down that rabbit hole? Like a lot of people go, oh, we want to see that there's a kid who doesn't care, who doesn't have a lot of money, who's a rebel. Put him in a leather jacket and smoking a cigarette, man, with a rancid patch on his, and you go, okay, well, that's level 1. But then level 2, what is that? Is it the way that they don't respond when someone says their name? Or is it that they have a scratch on their cheek in a certain place that makes you go, what is that? Is it like, how many pieces can you go? And then how much is it the expression? Dan Hay used to say this to me. This is where I got it. I'm sure a lot of people have had this thought, but he would say a good caricature makes a sound.
Yep.
And we were just working at SeaWorld, and we would do a drawing and he'd walk up, he'd start laughing. That's a good one. That one went, yeah. And so Dan Hay and Nate Graham and I would be talking about a good caricature makes a sound. And sometimes we'd see a drawing and we'd make a sound. Another one. And so I almost go, well, what if you heard that sound? What does that sound look like? What if you reverse it?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what you're saying about your friend, right?
Yeah.
We would also, Nate and I would be at the stand and we would start making these voices up, and it's somewhere between like a wizard and a Will Ferrell character. And then they started turning into characters. So like we have this children's book that we put together that we wanted to be an animated TV show as well. And so we're working on the children's book right now. We've been working on it for years. And the main character, we found his voice. And so the design and the writing all comes from his voice. And it's to the point where it's like, it's a silly voice we used to do. And when we get on the phone and start laughing and making each other laugh, we just slip into the voice. I couldn't even do it now because it's not something you just remember on command. It's something that you have to be talking to a friend, and you start feeling that joke, and then you get those giggles.
Yeah.
And then someone says a word like malnutrition, and then you start doing the voice, and then you start laughing, and then we go, oh my gosh. And then you have an idea for the book. So even the writing, the language choice that parents are going to read to their kids one day is informed by this voice that we did at a caricature stand at Cedar Point. And so that's where I start going like, oh, that is not that different from the level of character design where you're trying to imbue something that's ephemeral, and you're trying to put it out there where someone goes, I've never met that person, but I know exactly who they are.
I appreciate you talking to me about that, because I never really like once you're explaining it, it's starting to hone in on like how that art form is taken to another degree. And then same with storytelling. It's like all tied into each other. That's really impressive.
One of the pet peeves I used to have is when Instagram started to get big and people would, as they do today, use it as a main like portfolio hiring tool. Um, I would see some artists who are very young coming out of a good art school and they're very talented, and they would do one drawing that's really cool of a character, and you could tell that they use Photoshop adjustment layers and different kind of like fun little tricks that are shortcuts, which is great tools. But they would have like every color rainbow, have fun on their drawing. And so when you're scrolling, you stop and you're arrested by this image. It's like, wow, that's really cool. And they would put hashtag character design, hashtag character design. It I understand to catch someone's eye how effective that is, but it would always drive me nuts because character design, while that is like the sort of snapshot of what it looks like, it's so involved to make sure that things work and don't look silly, to make sure that all angles are considered, to make sure that expressions are done right, to make sure that the character stays on model in the process, whether it's 2D or CG or whatever you're building. It's such a thorough, um, I guess you could say, logistic process or craft. And I think it would always drive me nuts when artists would try to snatch up some work by just showing a little sparkly image. And I think that that's something that I didn't really come to the realization until recently on, is that that's just the embodiment of how I don't think people understand how much you have to do to maintain so things don't fall off, things don't go down the wrong path. Um, I always say like it's so easy in animation for apples to fall off the truck. So it's like you're driving in a pickup truck and you have crates of apples in the back. You're bringing them to town to the market. And every little bump you hit doesn't seem like a big deal, but a couple apples tumble off the back. And if you don't drive carefully all the way to the market to your destination, then you're going to hit road bumps and potholes and swerves and take the corners too fast. And all these apples are going to fall off the truck. And then when you get there, you don't have everything that you needed.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, and it's not effective, and you can't fill your stand. So it's like the final result has to be, you have to take every step with care, which also goes back to the perfectionist thing. I get so careful with every step of the process. I'm afraid that apples are going to fall off the truck, and they do, and they don't. And yeah.
So it's kind of like what bothers you. It's almost like transcribed to caricature when people say, "Oh, it's those big heads with those little bodies and that don't even look like you." Like it's
Bingo.
just kind of
Yeah.
the basic concept of what it
Oh,
could
it's
be.
cute. You draw those things with the big noses. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So when so I'm going down the line here. I appreciate this conversation so much. It's like so full of information, but I'm trying to be linear with your life. So you were at the theme park, you did your book, you did conventions, you started you moved to New York, and then you started working on an animation thing.
Yep.
Studio. What's wrong with me? And then that's when you started doing the convention, right? Because you're like, this one's not working out. I gotta make some money.
Yeah. It was a product of having the time and needing. I was freelancing a lot, and I thought I'm going to try to feed that beast by getting some exposure, meeting people. But also, I have this book to sell, and I ordered 3,000 copies, and these 3 people told me I should go sell it at these conferences, or else I'm going to be stuck with 2,800 books.
Yeah.
And so, I started doing that, but also freelancing and doing some character design and storyboards while I was there. That was pretty fun. I got to do some weird, wild stuff. And for a hot minute, I got pegged as like the caricature character design guy, where something like, there was a parody in Bette Midler's Las Vegas show that on an IMAX screen, there was going to be a section where it was like American Idol, but the theme was some sort of under the sea, underwater thing. So I had to design as different fish, the judges of American Idol for animation.
Okay.
And that was wild. And I got to just do that sitting in my tiny bedroom in Queens. And so there was a lot of things like that came along, and that was fun. I liked weird odd jobs that would come in. That was kind of crazy. But yeah, I did some freelance in New York. I do remember one thing that was a pivotal moment in my life. I was doing YouTube videos actually, but what I considered at the time, I was inspired by some other people who would just draw and paint and talk.
Hmm.
I would get lost in their work, and it's like I can do that. That's fun. I'll learn and share what I like. And so I was doing some of those videos where I would just like paint a caricature or draw a dog, and I started doing more storytelling illustrations, and I was sharing music and talking about what I'm doing. And it just hit me one time while I was doing this car being chased by police and some rednecks in it and playing the music of the band Blitzen Trapper, how it all tied together for me. I'm like, I'm absolutely doing storytelling. What am I doing?
Hmm.
Why am I not doing this for a living again? Why was I was doing piecemeal and advertising? On the background was Ratatouille. And I love that movie. I've seen it for like the 50th time right after it came out. And I just looked at the TV and looked at what I was doing and what I was sharing. I'm like, oh my God. And I said to my girlfriend at the time, I have to say this out loud. Within 6 months, I am going to be working in animation, original stories, not advertising. And it felt like that was like a huge canyon to leap over that seemed impossible. And within 2 months, like the stars aligned and a friend needed a storyboard artist and I recommended someone but said they won't move, and then they called me back and said, do you want to go to Louisiana? um there's a guy who makes movies and books and he needs someone to storyboard his short film. And at that point, every opportunity, every crack in the wall was a yes, 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 yes. So I moved to Louisiana, which I thought it was going to be about 3 months of doing some storyboards. And as soon as I met the person whose film it was, I clicked with them and I said, I want to stay here because the whole world's going to notice this if we work on it together.
Yeah,
And it worked out. And so I've always worked in original storytelling since then.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
When did you start getting into children's books? Shortly after that?
It was right with him. So that was William Joyce, and
Okay.
he did Meet the Robinsons and Robots, and he has a lot of children's books, Dinosaur Bob, and he's like a children's book legend, and he was starting his animation studio. So when I was talking to him, he would have me in the downtime help him out with some illustration, or we would lay out one of his books, or we would talk about the difference between this as a short film versus this as a feature film versus this as a children's book, and how it's the same story, but you have to, do a different medium. And I looked at what he was doing and I'm like, that's exactly what I want to do. To go back to that Tom Richmond conversation, in a way, it's, yeah, I want to do everything, but it's all storytelling.
Hmm.
It's all finding a way to funnel an idea that gives you emotions and visuals and art, and you receive it with your eyes and ears and your heart and your brain. And so, is it a children's book? Is it a comic? Is it a graphic novel? Is it a book, a novel? Is it like Shel Silverstein? Is it like Maurice Sendak? Is it a Pixar movie? Is it a Scorsese film? They're all just stories. And so I started getting engrossed in the diversity of how you could present a story, how you package it. And he would do an animated film. He would produce an animated film. He would make a short film. He would be doing a children's book. He would do a young reader graphic novel at the same time. And I'm like, I'm sitting there becoming best friends with William Joyce and going, I want to do what you do.
Hmm.
You're doing what I want to do. I didn't even know that's what I wanted to do. So the first children's book I ever illustrated was the Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lesmore. It's his most successful book by far,
Hmm.
and it was a New York Times bestseller for like 17 weeks, and it won awards. And I was so lucky because we did a short film in an app that was huge. The first children's book I illustrated was Morris Lesmore, and I was really lucky to see it be that successful because it had his name on it. It had the reputation of winning an Oscar. And so the publishing company marketed the heck out of it.
Uh-huh.
And so I kind of saw like almost the best that something could do. And I happened to be a part of it. Like I painted the majority of it and designed the book. And so I'm like, okay, that was a good experience. That was fun. And I like the medium and I learned so much. So I just want to keep doing this. Just want to keep doing it. And the more I got to do it, the more I started. It's like anything. It's like caricature. You start bending the rules and you start testing styles, and you start getting like, I became so upset. These are mostly children's books. I just had years and years where all I would do was buy books. I would go to the bookstore every weekend and I'd buy 5 children's books. I would go online on Amazon and I would read about an author and illustrator I just found out about and buy. I'd buy a bunch of really, really old ones, and I would buy 5 copies and give them out to people. I remember the moment I decided I didn't want to do theme park caricature anymore. I was threatened by this huge guy. I was in San Diego training a bunch of artists because with Commons Art Shops, I would travel and train artists at different places. And I was with my buddy Bo Hufford because he was managing, him and Brian Oakes were managing in San Diego SeaWorld. And I was there for like a week or 4 days training. And it was the next to last day or so I was supposed to be there. I was just going from stand to stand drawing. And part of the training process was, we're flying you out here. And so you got to make some money, like sell some caricatures, draw with the people, with the other artists. So I was drawing at the main stand, and this huge dude, really big in every way, had tattoos crawling up out of his shirt onto his shaved head and face tattoos. And he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, but he was just giant and strong and overweight. And I drew his wife or his partner, and he did not like it. She was fine with it, but he did not like it. He was angry at how I made her look funny. So I put the drawing on the back counter and said, it's okay. I'm sorry. I didn't set out to offend anyone. That's what we do. You don't have to buy it. If you change your mind, it'll be right here all day. And I went to the next customer, and it was like a 13-year-old girl. And he was cussing and leaning over my shoulder and being so rude to where the girl looked scared that I was drawing. And I started to get kind of annoyed. And then he meandered back and he was looking at the drawing and he started taking it, and he picked up the mat with the drawing in it and he started walking away. And I was like, excuse me, sir, you can't take that. He's like, what? I said, you can't take that drawing. You have to pay for it. And then he started going, you accusing me of stealing? You saying I'm stealing? You saying I'm a thief? I said, you are walking away with a mat and a drawing. If you want it, you have to pay for it. It's that simple. And then he said, he slapped it down. He said, no one calls me a thief. I'm going to come back and I'm going to cut you. And this dude and his wife kept telling him to calm down and told me, sorry, he's angry. He just got out of prison.
Oh, that's great to calm you down.
Yeah. And so they left and I was kind of a little rattled. But then I saw an hour later, he was standing like 20, 30 feet away, kind of mulling around the stand for a while. And he kept staring at me and he looked really unhappy. Just kept watching me and acting like I couldn't see him among the crowd. And he kept his eye on me, and I was like shaking. I couldn't handle it. And I was getting so much anxiety. So I went to the break room, and I was sitting there talking to a couple friends, a couple artists, and they were calming me down. And then Bo Hufford came and told me, like, yes, they're telling me what happened. Do you want to talk to security? And we talked to security. Turned out security came by and said that he was hanging out at the stand for a couple hours and they had to remove him from the park, I think. But I was still shaken up. And it's like all the joy that I had in that job, just forever. And I didn't want to be in that environment anymore.
Yeah.
And so I said, I don't ever want to do this again. I just said, I don't want to do it again. I don't want to work in a theme park anymore. I'm done.
Yeah.
And so my friend Bo said, okay, why don't you go around, draw at the stands, draw the other artists. I'll be with you. We'll get security if we need to, in case this guy comes back in or something. But then you can take tomorrow off. We'll go to the beach. You don't have to work. It's your last day. And then that's cool. We'll talk about it. And I never worked in a theme park again. I've done caricatures at parties and I love caricatures, but I've never worked at a theme park again because it's like shell shock. Just I didn't want to face people who were so angry and bitter and knowing that you can do that. So I thought, I'm just going to do it at parties. I'll just do it at parties.
Well, I mean, there's one good thing about that was you were with Bo Hufford, right?
He is the coolest.
Such a sweet man. Like if I'm having a panic attack, I wouldn't mind Bo being around me in that situation.
And Brian Oakes was with me too.
Oh,
he was really great.
Sweetheart.
Yep.
Great people.
Yeah.
Man, I'm sorry that happened. I'm sorry it
was
sucked
wild.
all the life out of it too.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things. Like I was at a point where I was tired of dealing with all the stuff that we've talked about earlier that seems charming and silly and human behavior. And we joke around about how soccer moms get so angry with you. And I hit a point because I was like, I don't know, 27 or 28. And I was already in New York. And so I was doing all the other stuff. And because I was between jobs, I was not just pushing my book. I was also going back and traveling with the caricature company again. And I think I was past it emotionally. I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have to explain to someone why they're funny.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's because I did it for so many years, so intensely. It's all I did
Mm-hmm.
that it couldn't be just a job for me. Like my old manager said, like, you can really sell, you can really make people happy. Why don't you just do that and make the most amount of money? And it all came back to like, this is not a function of employment for me. This is something I really love. And if I keep doing this, I'm going to hate it. And I wanted to continue to love it. It's something I've done since I could pick up a pencil. I would just draw people, funny cartoon versions of people before I knew what the word was. My mom taught me the word caricature and she was like, you're doing it already. I was like 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you're saying it wrong. It's character. And she's like, no, Joe, it's caricature. I'm like, Mom, you always pronounce things wrong. And I found out she was right. She was trying to teach me what I already. But I didn't want the joy to be taken out of it. And it's weird knowing so specifically that was the moment I said, I am done doing it this way. So in the future, I'll do parties and I'll do unique stuff and I'll illustrate and I'll do it for me. And it really, for a long time, it turned into caricatures for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you paid your dues for it and you're just like, this is my thing now? Like I can
In a way.
do it
In a
when I
way,
want
yeah.
to?
Yeah. There is certain things that you do that I don't assume everyone experiences this, but I think a lot of people understand this, whether it's an art form or any other craft or any other thing that you do. You can do it to a degree where you go, oh, I've proven I can do that. And when I was in art school, that was one thing. A very fundamental example is we were in drawing class, my second year of art school, and we had a still life assignment. And I was like, I am going to prove to myself that I can draw something that looks so real that people won't be able to. I'm just going to draw so real, just so I can put that like tool in my belt for the future. Not because that's the goal, not because that's what I wanted to do, but I wanted to amass skill sets so that I could figure out what to do with them. And so I did a still life, and to I guess send it into our teacher, there was some reason we had to do a photocopy of it. And I did a still life of just a bunch of crap in my dorm room. And I had a photocopy of it that was like this big, like a Xerox of it, sitting on my illustration table. And I would have people walk by, and this happened more than once, where they would say, is that reference for something? I'm like, what do you mean? What's that photo for? And they would say that, and that plainly. I'm like, that's not a photo. And they're like, no, I mean this. I know it's a copy, but like, why do you have this copy of this photo? And I'm like, no, I drew that. And so I would see that, like, oh, it was very easy because other people said it out loud. I learned how to draw so detailed and accurately that people thought it was a photograph.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So I know I can do that. And to me, it wasn't that I stumbled upon it. It wasn't an accident. I knew that I figured out how to do that. So I go, cool. What am I going to do with it now? What am I going to do with it? And in caricatures, I got so intense about it that I learned different styles. And of course, I didn't perfect everything and not the greatest at anything, but I hit a point where I explored styles, I explored mediums, I explored varying degrees of exaggeration and humor and seriousness and rendering and cartooning, where I feel like I figured out caricature. I figured it out. And now what do I want to do with it? And that's where the illustration went. And that's where the animation went. And then eventually it's like, I don't want to do this at a theme park anymore because I just want to figure out what I want to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little bit of I like, as you say, paid your dues, or you kind of earned a badge. You go, yeah, I figured out caricature. What do I want to say? What do I want to say with it? And there's so many artists that do abstract stuff, and not that I'd ever be near this category, but I was always amazed to find out that like Picasso could paint and draw his ass off.
Mm-hmm.
But no one learns that when you first figure out who he was and you first learn his work. It's always this so abstract, so simple cubist, right? And and you see how he draws things like a child. But then if you when you start learning what he did when he was younger, it's like he learned all of his craft. He sharpened all his knives and he knew how to do everything. And then he goes, what do I want to do with this? And kind of went down different avenues. So yeah, with caricature, I'm sure some people are going to hate that I say this, but I feel like I figured it out. And so I figured out that I want to see what I want to do with it.
That makes sense. I wouldn't combat that too much. I think
I think there's a lot of people who have, in the way I'm talking about it, have figured it out. That's maybe a bad way of saying it, but there's a lot of artists that I think they hit a point where it's like, oh yeah, you cracked that nut.
yeah.
It's like it's like a race car driver. Like there's a lot of race car drivers that are so darn good. They figured out how the car works. They figured out all the little nuts and bolts and also the finesse of the feeling the car. And there's a lot of people who just kind of figured it out. And that's great. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to win every week at every race. No. It doesn't mean they can drive every car. No. But just like they figured that out. I think there's a lot of artists who figured out caricature.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're swimming in what do they want to do with it. Tom Richmond is another good example of that. Yeah, he figured out what he wanted to do. He figured out how the mechanics of it work and what he wants to do with it. And he went to this place with it.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that you hung up the hat for caricature per se, just because you don't want to do it in the theme park.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I do think that's probably a very different animal. I mean, that's what, like 10-hour days in the heat. You got to deal with happy customers, rude customers. And then
I do miss it. I do miss it a lot.
I bet.
Now I do.
I bet. I saw that video that you posted not that long ago. It's about like admiring the era of your life.
Yeah. It's funny because you can't argue with those emotions that hit you when you have a scent or something and it reminds you of a friend or your mom.
Yeah.
That's in your body.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when that happened the other day, I was walking through a parking lot, and you know how it is. I mean, I don't know if you do, but a lot of people who worked in the theme parks, you know, the blacktop, the sun, a lot of cars walking through the parking lot, the smell of the food and stuff, and something just like, yeah. I was in a theme park at SeaWorld walking back from my lunch break, and I had all the feelings that went along with that when I was really digging it. And I was like, oh man, I miss that. I want to go back there.
Yeah.
So it's not total PTSD, and it's not something I ever want to stop doing. I loved it.
Yeah, but I don't think you necessarily need to go back to the theme park to resurface that, you know?
No, not at all.
Well, I'm just thinking about how you told me earlier that there was a lot of artists that were like, why'd you hang up the hat for caricature? Why don't you go back into it? And and I think that's kind of, I don't want to say narcissistic, but it's kind of self-centered when I think caricature is a good lifestyle. I think it's a fun little career that people can get into, but I think it's a big educational side of being a creative and learning how to deal with people and building your skin thicker and exploring new creative ideas, like right there on the spot, 5 minutes, and also talking to the people that you're interacting with. I think it preps you a lot if you want to keep on moving. And from everybody that I've talked to that has progressed in their life, I don't want to say higher than caricature, because I don't think there's a hierarchy of creative professions. I just think that there's stepping stones. And when they took different paths, they still always have this love for that art style. And I think that's something beautiful, because I don't know. I just could be ignorant to it, but I don't think that lifestyle and that art style resonates as much with caricature. I could be wrong, but I'm biased.
Yeah. It also, you're right. I'll always have a relationship with caricature and always be obsessed with it in some way. There's I love going to the caricature conference, the ISCA conference. I haven't gone in a couple years, but it's because of work. But when I can, I go. And the last few times, there's just a totally different approach to how I feel about the art form and what I want to do in that um, in that environment. And it's so interesting. Like I remember the first few caricature conferences I went to would be I would create art that's just as I would try to wow everyone as much as I can. I would try to stretch my arms out and be like, remember one thing that really stood out to me is my second year. It was when I had that imposter syndrome and I'm like, I have to prove that I earned that Golden Nosy by doing something even better this year. And so, one of the things I did was it was a Japanese artist and she had a shaved head and she had this certain like energy to her as she walked around the room. And the art wasn't that great, but what I did was like some acrylics on dark paper and I splashed water across, not water, but like wet paint across it. So it looked like torrential rain.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had a certain expression and rain on it. And I remember my friend Steve Fishwick, who is an artist, he does those large scale like splash painting performances, and he does stuff for Disney art now. He's like a licensed Disney artist, does a lot of stuff there. But he was managing a caricature operation, and he's a really good caricaturist. I remember him saying that stood out to him. He's like, there's something you're doing here that's so different. You're capturing her personality, her energy. You're getting her energy in here. And I remember it was like, oh, that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't. You try to do that with almost every piece, an environment like that at a caricature conference, but then some of them work out, some of them don't. Some of them are funny. Some of them you start drawing and then it turns into, oh, this is about the ink line, or this is funny. I'm going to make his teeth even bigger because that's where this is kind of going.
Mm-hmm.
You have to follow wherever it takes you. Sometimes the drawing or the painting takes you along instead of you forcing it. And every now and then that would happen. And so I always love that feeling. And now when I do caricature, it's not that often. So it's often, if it is, it's at a caricature conference. And I think about how much I love these people and how much I'm learning and growing as a person through all these friends. And the one that really stood out to me is I was having like some existential thoughts and changes in life that I was going through and talking to my friend Bernd. Bernd, I think Weidenhauer. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but he would wear all orange at the time. And he was so silly, big childish eyes, like a clown, like a circus clown that was performing all the time. And I played golf with him. And when we talked about life, I saw a father and I saw a person who reflected. And it was so impactful to me that I thought, this is how I see this person now. I don't see the big eyes and the square jaw and the ponytail. And I thought like, well, what do I do with that? I can't stop thinking about our time together. And then I started thinking, well, what wouldn't a depiction of him that could be considered a caricature, can't it be a distillation of how I see that person? Because whether it's AJ's giant eyes and his faux hawk and his goatee, that's how I see you with my eyes. But what if you see into someone's heart? And I was trying to think, how do you do that? And so that's where my grappling hooks kind of always stick now. And that painting was several years ago, and I painted the back of him.
Yep.
But it was all about this. It was about the sunset and the nature he was looking at and the feeling. That's one of the few moments where I'm very, very proud of a piece of art, because the context, it's kind of like rejects. Everyone's expecting a certain thing.
Yeah.
And I even had a lot of people give me a hard time saying it's not a caricature because it's the back of a head and there's no exaggeration. And I'm thinking it's absolutely a caricature. It's exactly what I wanted to say. And it's how I see him. And it's editorial. It's editorialized, which is what a caricature is. If you want to have tiny M&Ms for eyes and lips with buck teeth, that could be me, right? You could leave a nose off or put a triangle nose on, and that could be Joe. Mm-hmm. So you have to make editorial choices. Well, what's the difference between that and just drawing the back of someone's head, which has been done before? But I was so proud of that because I put a speaker behind the canvas. And I don't think a lot of people got to experience this because a lot of people have seen this image, but weren't there in the room. And I don't know if it's crass to say that you're proud of a piece of art, but it's so rare that it happens. I put a little speaker in. My friend Daniel Stieglitz helped me devise this because when I was painting it, I was almost crying thinking about my new connection with this new close friend. And he kept saying, "You seem so emotionally invested in this piece." And I said, I don't know. I keep playing this song in my headphones while I'm painting, and I can't stop listening to the song. And I don't know if it has something to do with the painting. I said, "I want you to hear it, Daniel." And so Daniel put the headphones on, and he was looking at what I was painting half done, and he had watery eyes. And he said, "Whatever is happening in your mind and your heart, you need to let them experience. Make them listen to this song." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "This song is part of your painting. Why don't you make them listen to this song?" So we came up with this idea together. I went and I bought a little Bluetooth speaker, and we played this song looping from behind the canvas. So you could only hear it at the ISCA hall, at the conference hall, when you got within like 20 feet. You could gently hear this song pulling you in. And I saw 3 people walk up to it and begin crying. And I thought, that's how I felt when I was making the piece. And so that's where I like to live in caricature now, is figuring out new ways to communicate an emotion. It's it's like it's happened once for me, but I want to do that. And so after that happened, I had this sort of revelation that when I do get to go to the character conference, it's super cheesy, but I've told people I'm not going to draw any or paint anything that's like extreme. I'm going to make a hug. It's a hug for someone. And so the last couple of times that I've done a piece at the character conference, the last few times, it's always someone that I see something darling in, or something special, or a person that I found out, like there was this couple who got engaged or they were getting married, like on the fly in Vegas. And once I found out they were doing that, I was like, oh my God, I want to give them a wedding present. And they were so like, it's the purpose of it is to service a joy or kindness. And so it becomes a weird confliction, a weird duality for me, because you got something that's called rejects, and there's blood splattered on the cover, and people expect that, and I like doing that, and I like pushing the envelope. But then I took that skill, and I want to go, well, how can I spread love with this? And I don't get to do it often, but that silly rant about the Barnes painting.
No.
That painting makes me so happy.
I'm glad it does, because I remember it, but I'm going to be honest, when it was happening. So I remember going up to it and looking at it. And then I was like, Joe, because I was like, this was the time when you were doing like picture books and stuff. I'm like, Joe's trying to make a story of Burn and evoke like a setting or his essence, I would say, is what you're trying to invoke. And then I know how Burned is. He's like silly, goofy, blah, 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 blah. But if you sit down with him and have a heart to heart, that's a good heart to heart. That dude he's just very intelligent, like emotionally.
Yeah.
So I got it. But I remember you were there and you're like, do you like it? Does this make sense to you? I'm like, yeah. And you're like, no, do you like it? No, you weren't like, do you like it? You're like, are you sure that this is fine? You almost seemed like kind of insecure about it.
Really? Yeah.
When
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And then now it makes me happy, because you're like, that's one of my favorite ones. I'm like, thank God, because that thing ruled.
Well, it was, that makes sense that I was asking that at the time. It was probably because I was insecure about taking the risk of doing something like that. And I also know I had plans to do like 5 paintings, and I'm painting big, and then I only did one.
No, I think you did that, and then like 2 other ones, right? Or
I started 2 others, but I didn't. Or maybe I ended up putting a little one, but I didn't. I had a bunch of big ones that I was starting, and I only finished one.
Yeah.
And I think that was partially why I was really insecure.
Sense.
I also was, it was like discovering what you're doing while you're doing it. Mm-hmm. That was a big deal. So like I may speak about it with love and confidence right now, that it's, oh, I really love it. But or I did what I wanted to do. But in the moment, it's like figuring it out and not knowing where you're going with it.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, it's just something that made me so happy. And then I think it makes me happy now too, because there's still a little tiny bit of a punk rock, like, don't tell me what to do kind of person inside of me a little bit. Like that 21, 22-year-old is like, I don't need art school. I'm going to go show everyone. Is that there was a big conversation online about that's not a caricature. How did that win an award? That's not a caricature. And I like that there was a debate about that there was a conversation around that. And then I came home and I thought, well, where is the value of art like this? And it's something that I was trying to dissect. What is art in general? And so there's a local competition or like an open call in this city with the Arts Council, the City Art Council, every year. And they have a nationally or internationally renowned critic that comes in and like does a review of all the work and chooses people that won like the best of show, and you get a prize and you get a solo show and stuff like that. And so there's this gallery full of 200 pieces of art, and it's like a big event, and it has to be art that you created in the last year, and it has to be considered like a standalone piece of fine art. It can't be like, you probably don't want to grab like the cover of a children's book you did, and you probably don't want to do, and you can't do something that wasn't made in the last 8 or 10 months. And so I got home and I thought, I'm going to put this in the show and see what happens when this painting is in a gallery and no one knows the context. It doesn't have the context of caricature. And the critic came in and just overwhelmingly chose the piece. And so I'm like, so I'm exploring, what does that all mean to me? Is that it's the back of the head. And then so I told the critic that I did it at a caricature conference, and she looked so confused. And I said, but I didn't want to tell anyone. I just wanted to see how this stood on its own. And I framed it, and my friend, it's also sometimes the journey you go on. My friend and I were building some things at his house way out in the country. I was helping him out one night, and I said, do you have any old wood that I can use to make a frame? And so we went out to an old cow pasture, an old barn way out in the woods, found wood that was a fence that was fallen down that was over 100 years old. And he said that he was going to eventually clear it out anyway. So we ripped it out, cut a frame, and I cut a frame that just overlaps on each corner like that. It just kind of doesn't joint or anything. And it's 100-year-old, farm fence wood that we just found, and something about that feels good to me. But then I'm going, well, does a frame matter? I don't know. Now you're gonna get me. Now I'm on this art talk.
No, I like it.
I get worked up about that.
I love it. I was trying to, I guess I'm just like astonished on, when you're anxious about something or nervous about it or having imposter syndrome about something, and then you look back on all of those insecurities that you had on that piece or just a caricature or whatever. And you look back and you're kind of fond of that memory, and now you like it. I think that's something in itself is powerful, especially if we're moving it into perfectionism and grabbing in the storytelling aspect of everything. It's just kind of all falling into place like Legos stacking on each other. So I'm kind of digging this.
Let me turn this light on. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Out of here. This should help a little bit.
I think it made the mood more.
Yeah. Getting creepy in here. Yeah, it is funny looking back on what makes you happy and what doesn't in the moment.
So when you go to ISCA now, you just kind of want to do like a little love letter for people in a way?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. I definitely want to make something that is like a gift. And some of that comes from this is a little stupid to say, but some of that comes from the fact that I know that I went there in 2002 and won the Golden Nosy and got to know everyone. And then 2003 came back. And then when they started doing Masters Awards, I won that a couple times. And it's like in that community, and then I published this book. In that community, people know me for caricature. And in that, especially in that group, and we all know each other for so many years. So I had for a while some people saying like, "Will you draw me? Will you draw me? Will you draw me?" And I felt a lot of pressure, and I tried to make a lot of images, a lot of caricatures at the conferences, and it wore me out. So I thought I want to be really precious and particular about it. So I make no promises, and I thought all I want to do is give someone something lovely. I just want to give someone something great, and so it makes me. It also kind of freezes me, like uh, the choice is really important to me, and that's why it's hard for me to choose if I'm going to do like one or two pieces because I want it to be a gift.
Yeah.
And then my child brain goes into, well, why should one person get a gift? Why can't I give everyone a little present? And then what should I paint? Should I make, oh, if I'm going to make one, it should make everyone happy. And then I start going to that insecure place again. But uh, yeah, it's like I know that for some people, for like and again, I know this sounds really silly, but I'm just seeing the forest for the trees. Like a young person who comes in and goes, "Oh my God, I read Rejects," and they're meeting me for the first time, and I maybe worked with their boss at Six Flags 15 years ago. I want that to be a good impression, and I want to be a good example for someone like that, even if I'm, you know, a middle-aged old man to that person, but they know the stuff I've done. So I want to show something good. And it makes me feel more pressure, especially as a dad, to do something that's loving, show something that's beautiful. But it definitely cripples me a little bit.
Yeah. So
Like,
that's a lot of pressure, buddy.
yeah, but it's stuff I put on myself. I could just
Yeah.
show up and just doodle all the whole time. I've done that a couple years, just do little tiny drawings and hang up 50 little sketches.
I got a question.
Mhm.
Be honest. Those caricatures that are in Rejects now, do you look at those and be like, those are solid?
No. No, I think everyone, yourself included, who does it nowadays does it way better.
That's
Yeah.
astonishing because if you, just being honest, if you were to draw me in that style in that book and give it to me, I would be like, this is one of the best caricatures I've ever had. Isn't that crazy? Because,
How much of that is the context of the knowing the book and knowing when you got started doing caricature?
but it's also the fact of like the familiarity, like like a
Uh,
band, for example, like
yeah.
if you go and show up at a Pink Floyd concert and they don't play anything from Dark Side of the Moon, you're like disappointed,
Yeah.
you know? And I think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that's making me like a little bit realize that I have this so much expectation on myself, of wanting to do something better each time. But sometimes I just
I was
gotta just
watching one of your videos with my son because I was telling him how he has to like give me a little time today, and he's 5, and I was showing him your videos earlier today. And your drawings in those videos when you were going over, it was one that you were going over the process of uh, I think it was about like a reject or something. I forget the title of the video, but it had something to do with a style that gets accepted. And your drawings were better than all the drawings in rejects, in my opinion. But
I don't
that's
feel
the
that
way
way.
see it.
But that's
Yeah.
weird how that perception's there, and I'm trying to say that the perfectionist and all of those insecurities balled into something and wanting to go past that, you gotta, like, jump over it to complete something, when the perceptions of what people are wanting are sometimes not as good to what you want sometimes.
Mhm.
Is that did
Yeah.
am I getting on the nail a little bit?
That does
I'm
make
trying to
sense to me.
explain what I'm saying. It's just like we hold ourselves in such high regard that we're not stopping by and thinking, "Oh, me just doing a bad piece of artwork in my mind, somebody else is still perceiving that as an awesome gift, even if it's not at to our standards." Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with if you just do a drawing or a painting a day, that's a throwaway fun thing. Those are more memorable than the things that you think are better.
Yeah.
Um, I I've started realizing that. So right now, what I'm doing a lot is writing, and I'm trying to get a movie made eventually. I have books that I've been illustrating a lot of books, but I don't want to just be the illustrator. I want to be the author and the illustrator. So I have all these stories that I've got that I'm working towards getting out there. And there's something just hit me recently. It's just, I need to get all of them out there because I keep focusing on this one precious one that's the best one in my head. And if I had to choose, like rank ideas and execution, I go, I know the winner. There's one movie I want to make before I die. Yeah, I could make 5 movies. I have all these ideas, but this is the one that matters. So I'm so precious about it. But when I'm 80 years old, if I do make those 5 movies, probably the one that I think is clearly the best one and going to resonate with people won't be. It'll probably be one of the ones that that was a fun idea. And people might go, it changed my life. And like, oh, but what about that one? They might go, who?
Yeah. I wonder if that's
And
like
it is,
a reoccurring thing amongst creatives. Like, I'm pretty sure,
yeah.
like, James Cameron's like, I freaking hate Terminator. You know?
I have heard people say a lot lately that you can't control what people are going to like. So just keep making stuff, and that seems to make a lot of sense to me. I do know that the one thing that I made that I like is this guy and my
That was a
daughter,
good tie-in right there.
right?
That was
Right.
that was beautiful. You getting tired, buddy?
Arthur, are you tired or no? Yeah.
I think you're
You all right?
tired, man. You can lie all you want,
Yeah.
but I think you're tired.
He's a
Well,
good one.
Joe, I appreciate you doing this with me, man. I love this conversation. It was pretty inspiring, and then also at the same time, it's causing some kind of emotion in me that I feel like we were touching on an iceberg about perfectionism, and it's very nice. So I appreciate this. Plus, I love connecting with new people every day, and I've always wanted to like sit down and talk to you, but every time we're at the convention, it's not as much, I guess, as I want it to. So this was a treat for me.
We should make sure we do that more often. I remember the very first time we actually got a chance to talk beyond just saying hi. And I definitely felt then and feel it now that we have a lot we can share.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, you take care of yourself, and I appreciate you doing this again. You're awesome.
Thank you again. You're great. Arthur, you want to say bye to my friend AJ?
Say bye to
Bye.
everybody, buddy. You're closing it out. Say
You can close it. Say,
close
have
it.
a good day, YouTube.
Have a good day, you too.
Perfect. That was perfect.